Vincent.
Okay, we're live. And hi Claire.
Hello, Vincent. The two of
Hi.
you.
Yeah, I don't know why that other one's there, to be honest with you. I'm just gonna quickly, I always do this at the beginning of my stream, so I'm on oops. So I'm on Shadowban. If you want to see my videos, go to vincentbrunoshadowban.blogspot.com. There's a banner at the bottom of the um there's a banner at the bottom of the what's it called? What? That's not it.
I don't even have the link to your video that I can share on my timeline.
Oh no. Don't make
Do you have to
hold on.
start
Let's
again?
no, I don't have to start again. Just give me a second. Let me just see something. Hold on. Hold on one second. It's just my this is just annoying. I'm getting I'm really upset. So I had I had my whole computer debugged. And
Mm-hmm.
so Judas Fly told me that my computer was full of viruses. And Judas Fly was like, "Oh, it's because you look at porn on your computer." So totally stopped looking at porn. And I think I have a virus again.
Okay, so what is the nature of this virus? What does it do?
Um it just makes when I click on something it makes another tab pop up.
Oh, don't you have an antivirus?
Yeah, I do, but I don't know why it's not working. I don't know why it's
Yeah,
not
I guess if you
working.
just click on a bad link, then you get it. And sometimes they're so clever, and sometimes we're just so careless.
Right. Yeah. Hold on, I'm just trying to set this all up. So how have you been? Actually, can you send the guest link to Mujid?
Okay.
And while I'm getting this, and then if you want to talk a little bit so that I can
So
finish
we are
out.
live. Okay, okay. Well, we are
Yeah, we
live.
are live. Yeah, we're
Yes.
live.
And
Um, oh, we were talking about polytheism versus monotheism and how logical it is. And why I mean
yes, yes, I was.
you guys seem to think that polytheism is illogical, but I kind of want to show you how it's not illogical. I
Okay,
don't
and I
I
was
don't
thinking of that subject too, and I wanted to explain to you why it is monotheism is so logical. So while you're sorting things out, I might. Shall I do that, or do you want me to get your point in first?
no, go ahead.
So people who believe in a monotheist deity say, well, if if the universe was created, then it must have been created by something incredibly powerful, and it would be just so supremely powerful that you just can't imagine that it would have, fathers and brothers and wives and that kind of thing. And and I think even in polytheism, if you look at the Greek pantheon, you would know that even in the polytheist pantheon, that is the Greek pantheon, there would be a supreme authority, and it would be Zeus. Zeus was king of the gods on Mount Olympus. So there'd be all the god of war and the goddess of love and persuasion, and all the other ones, and they would compete with each other, and when things got too out of hand, he would come and come down and stop their nonsense. But we also know that Zeus would also have a problem with his wife, who didn't like him going around impregnating mortal women, because he had the habit of turning into a swan and raping mortal women, and siring semi-divine offspring. And some people believe that Jesus was born of this idea of Zeus going around impregnating mortal women. But of course, the Christians would give a twist of it, their Christian twist, and saying, but Mary was really a virgin, nothing happened and whatever. But the thing is that it has to be a one supreme being, because you can't imagine a supreme being having to share power. So that is, the logic of even talking about a supreme being, that it wouldn't be sharing any power with wives and parents and children and that sort of thing. It would be the supreme being, who is the uncaused first cause. And I suppose you could say, well, it's so improbable, we can't believe in it. And what if this Abrahamic God is not the moral God, but really an evil God who just wants us to suffer and then die and go to hell, and that's how he has his fun with us. And I suppose if you want to go with the concept of an omnipotent, omniscient, supreme, eternal, and perfectly moral God, you would just have to assume that he has all these attributes, and therefore people get this idea that there is nothing more powerful that they can conceive of other than the Abrahamic God, who is also perfectly moral. And this.
Claire, just so you know, I'm sending you the link to the video that you
Okay,
can
thank
share on
you.
your timeline.
All right. And that is basically the reason. I mean, they're saying it's logical. I mean, a supreme being wouldn't be sharing power with its spouse or father. So logically, a supreme being must be an uncaused first cause, and be unimaginably powerful, and just wouldn't be sharing power, because if it shared power, it wouldn't be the supreme being, thus negating its entire premise. So I think that might have been what Mujahid was trying to say.
Okay, but you believe this supreme being came out of nothing.
It would be the uncaused first cause, as Aristotle put it.
Okay, but so nothing caused God.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you say, "Oh, but who calls God?" and then you would get to a situation of infinite regression, and then they say, "Well, we're going to cut this out, and we're just going to assume that somewhere, it has to end somewhere, because otherwise it will just go on, and we'll never find out." So we for the purposes of this exercise of creating God, if you want to think of God as being a creation of man, you would have to assume the existence of a supreme being who is not dependent on anything for its existence, because it is the uncaused first cause. And interestingly, I mean, was it Aquinas or was it Aristotle who reasoned in this way? And Aristotle would have been a pagan. So let me just check this uncaused first cause idea. In a way, it's kind of universal because it's logical. But we also know that if it was Aquinas, he was serving the Catholic Church.
Okay, so if there could be one God who was uncaused, then there can be many gods who were uncaused in the beginning.
Well, I mean, a lot of these Hindu gods, I mean, they're kind of like, oh, Krishna, I mean, he must have had a mother, right? I think he has a mother, doesn't he? So if he has a mother, he must have a father, and,
Well,
and
no,
then
not all the gods.
you
The
get,
original gods. So the original gods, if they came out, if God is uncaused and it could create one god, then an uncaused god could be many gods, and then they wouldn't have any mothers or fathers, the top gods up there. Let's say that there were 10 initial gods that were uncreated, then they don't have mothers or fathers.
yeah, but I mean, just imagine that you really were just sort of playing around with this idea and creating a religion, and because maybe you grew up in an environment of all these pagans, and these pagans have their different gods, and they all competed with each other to see which god was most powerful, and you can see the logic of it, because before the creation of the Abrahamic God, there was there was Aten, wasn't it? Which was a creation of the ancient Egyptians, and there's a kind of reductionist view of God, because once upon a time there were lots of gods, and all these different people worship the gods of trees and rocks and mountains and whatever, and then and then Aten, the pharaoh, said, forget all that. I see that there are all these priests in my kingdom, and they have too much power, and they have all these sort of vested interests in their particular deities, and I want to sweep all that aside, and I'm going to be the sole medium through which my people can communicate with God. So they worship me, and I intercess on their behalves, and that was Artemism, and because there were all these vested interests of the priesthood, the moment he died, they just changed everything back again to the polytheist version. But he did try to create the thing that he sought to perpetuate, because he saw that the priesthood is really a parasitic class. And I'm sure funerals were terribly costly affairs in ancient Egypt, and then we have the creation of the Abrahamic God, which is the idea of a one God, all powerful, but also compassionate. And that, I think, is the power of the Abrahamic God, that, well, he's good and he cares for us. Well, the god of Aten was, well, he didn't really care. He just wanted stuff from us, and we never got anything back. But for this development of this ever more perfect God, that came in the form of the Abrahamic God, that was it. Omnipotent, omniscient, eternal, supreme, and perfectly moral, meaning that everybody gets their just desserts. If we don't get rewarded or punished in this life, then there'll be the next life, and of course we don't know how he's going to do it, but then he's omnipotent, so of course he can create a heaven and hell and know everything we do, and judge us accordingly, and everybody gets their just desserts, and this, I guess, if you believe in it, is enormously comforting, and that explains the power and popularity of the Abrahamic God.
Okay, okay. Well, first of all, Oswald Spengler's in the chat, so I just wanted to say hello to him. Um, okay,
Hello.
what you're saying is that it is more pragmatic and practical to have one God, but that doesn't mean it's more logical. It's just more, you're saying, in your opinion, it's more pragmatic to run a state with one God than it is with many gods.
Yes, because then everybody understands. Because people instantly understand, like one God supreme, blah blah blah, created the universe, and it's so simple, and it's like, yeah, we kind of want to believe in it if it helps us. Rather than, oh, we have to study the Greek pantheon, and then it'll be a different pantheon for a different civilization, and this is the power of this universal God. Um, so that's why it's so popular, and that's why um, you know it has allowed Europeans to acquire three global empires. So it is powerful. The idea is powerful, and then and of course there is this addition of scripture, saying, "Oh, this God that we conceived of, He's communicated to us, and He gave the Torah to Moses, and then He gave the Quran to Muhammad, and then and He communicated with us. He knows us, gives us advice, book of rules. Hallelujah. We'll follow the rules and be good and safe."
Okay, but so you can no longer just apply. You can't just tell us that a polytheist that polytheism is illogical. You can't come out and say that. You just have to say, well, monotheism is more practical.
Yes. I mean, okay, I know atheists say that religion is a form of mind control, and I say yes, of course it is. Of course it is. Well, why would you even pretend to be shocked and horrified? I mean, laws are a form of control. We don't object to laws, do we? I mean, we sort of see the point of it, because we kind of know how that people might otherwise get murdered and stolen from, and if there were no law. So in a way, it's all logical. It's like, well, and if you're going to have laws, you're going to base them on the moral system, and you want the moral system to be, the best, fair, and good to good people and bad to bad people, and so I guess that explains the popularity of the Abrahamic faith and the civilizations that followed these religions, compared to Hindus and Buddhists who have inferior scripture.
Hi, Mujid.
Good evening, everyone. How you doing? Thank you, Vincent. Hello, Claire, and
Hello.
how's everyone?
Okay, so we were talking to Claire that now Claire admits that you can't say that polytheism is illogical. You can only say that monotheism is more practical. Because if there could be one God in the beginning that was uncreated, there could be many gods in the beginning that were uncreated.
To me, that doesn't make logical sense to me. But
why?
But I could see from your point of view. See, again, I'm trying to be objective. See, even though I'm a Muslim, I try and be objective as best as possible. And just to let you know, I'm not going to stay too long on here. Yesterday was too long, and I was going to say, Vincent, no hard feelings for yesterday. I know that basically we had some heated discourse, but it's always good to be passionate on both sides. As long as we keep it respectful, it's all good, my friend. What I was going to say, so from your point of view, I could see how you can come to that conclusion. But being a Muslim, that's illogical and irrational to me, because the way I found God is, like, for example, I questioned all of these things because as growing up, see, one thing, I must say, the education system in this country, growing up, it taught me to be a critical thinker. It taught me to critique everything in the world. Yeah. So I had to go through my own journey as well. That what I believe in, does it make logical, rational sense? Now, I'm not saying, for example, now you talked about Judaism, that you follow just the text, even if it doesn't make logical sense. It's the dogma that they believe in. Now, as a Muslim, I also believe, you may call it dogma, we call it the nakal. Nakal basically means the text. If the text says something, we hear and obey the text. Yeah. But I do also believe that Islam makes really logical, rational sense, and like I said, and that's why a lot of people accept it, because obviously it nourishes a person's soul, and it does not conflict with the intellect. You see, it's in harmony. Now, from your point of view, again, I'm trying to be objective. From your point of view, I can see where you can make that assertion that there might be a multitude of gods, yeah, and they could be possibly uncreated. But to me, that's illogical. It's like saying you got a pregnant woman, but she's not pregnant at the same time. Yeah.
No, that's not. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Okay, let me explain to you what I mean by that. So, for me, for example, because I believe in contingency argument, I believe when we look again in the natural world, everything is dependent on something else. Yeah. So there has to be one which is uncreated. And for example, you might say, okay, you believe that God is Allah is uncreated, and who was the cause of Allah? We say that Allah never had a beginning. Yeah. So because if he never had a beginning, therefore he didn't have a cause, and therefore he is the creator. Do you see? Yeah. And therefore he has to be one. Do you see? Yeah. And everything comes from that one. Now, going back to what you are saying, even if you look at all the ancient pagan religions, yeah, even like I know Claire was talking about the ancient Egyptians. Even the ancient Egyptians, they had Horus, they had Isis, they had Osiris. Actually they were the Egyptian Trimurti, yeah. But they also had one supreme being, like, and I'm sure you have you heard of Akhenaten, yeah. So
Yeah.
Akhenaten, I believe he could have been a prophet, yeah, and Allah knows best. I'm not sure about him, but he could have been at the time of Joseph as well, Yusuf alayhi salam. But Akhenaten, when he came, like, he just said, ban all of these gods. We don't believe in. We believe in Aton. That one supreme. And the ancient Egyptians, they used to believe in that. They also believed that there was this one supreme being, and all of these gods, or these deities or these murtis, came from that. And it's the same with Hinduism. If you look at Hinduism and you speak to some of these high priests of Hinduism, they will tell you the same thing, that they will say that Brahman was first, meaning which did not have any cause, and from Brahman all of these other gods come. Yeah. And me being a Muslim, I believe in that Brahman, that supreme one, and I reject all of these other gods that come after this Brahman. Let's put it that way. And if you analyze the Quran, if you read the Quran and you analyze, yeah, basically Allah talks about the pagan Arabs. He says that basically these pagan, he calls them pagans, he calls them mushrikeen, yeah. And at the same time, Allah affirms, God Almighty affirms in the Quran, these pagan Arabs, they, even though they believed in so many gods, at the same time they believed in Allah. So now you might be thinking, because like Allah says in the many times in the Quran, if you were to ask the mushrikeen, if you were to ask these polytheists, yeah, who gave you life, who gives you death, yeah, they will say Allah. Yeah, if you are, again, Allah's being rhetorical here, asking questions. If you ask these polytheists who create the heavens and earth, who create everything around you, yeah, if he's asking the Muslim to ask literally the pagans will reply, it is Allah. Then then Allah asked the Muslim to ask them, so why do you worship these people, these things, these murtis, these trimuti? He goes, it's a means of getting closer to Allah. Yeah. And then Allah confirms that this is their polytheism. So they did not reject Allah. In fact, the pagan Arabs, they believed in Allah, but they associated partners with God. That's the thing. They associated partners, that these were other gods. Because what happened, let me tell you, what they believed, the pagan Arabs believed that this God, i.e., if you want to call him God the Father in Christianity, or if you want to call him Allah, or if you want to call him the Brahman, the ultimate thingy in Hinduism, or if you want to talk about ancient Egyptian, the atom, or whatever it is, yeah, the most supreme one at the top, yeah, they believe, the pagan Arabs believe that he was too far away, meaning there was no contact with him. Like, he's kind of created everything and created all of these other stuff and created these other gods as well, by the way, but he's too far, to contact. Yeah. So what these pagans used to do, they anthropomorphize other gods, looking at celestial stars. Because let me tell you, paganism all comes from the stars. So they anthropomorphize all of these celestial constellations, make them into gods, yeah, and they will worship them, and say, because they were closer to them, and they believe like certain constellation of gods, they bring rain, or they bring fertility, and they bring all of this. And that's why you have, like, in Hinduism, you have the destroyer, you have the cherisher, etc., etc. Same thing, exact same polytheism that pagan Arabs believed in. So that's why I'm saying, if you took care in reading the Quran, all of your questions would be answered in the Quran itself, because they believed in the same thing. But Allah's saying, don't do this. Allah saying, I'm the sole creator who has created everything. I have brought everything into existence. And this idea of having multiple gods, Allah refutes this idea. Says, look, if there was multiple gods, surely we will be trying to outstrip one another. Yeah, there will be
Okay,
chaos.
that's
And
what
I
I
know
want.
what you're going to say. I know what you're going to
I
say.
I know I do. Well, let me say it. I want to address that. That look, you say that in nature there is no person that is unjealous, but then at the same time you say God is outside of nature. So if the gods are outside of nature, it's possible there is a God who has no jealousy, who rises to the top when all
No,
the other
I never
gods
said
become
jealousy.
jealous.
I never used the word jealousy at all. Yeah, I'm talking about being on top. That's what I'm saying. Outstripping. This is what Allah said. That I provided the verse of the Quran. They will be trying to get on top of each other, not because of jealousy. It's just because of power. Yeah,
As a
and
mercy and guidance.
yeah,
I
but
know, but
Allah
they
is
live
the
outside
ultimate
of
power.
nature, so they don't have human emotions or human natures. They're above humans.
No, but if you look at all of these pagan gods, you see that they got special qualities, special powers. So obviously they're going to be trying. If they did exist, which they don't, and clearly that's what Allah's talking about here. If, like I said, if you read the Quran, it's talking about the history of polytheism here. Yeah, and it's telling you don't believe in these other gods because they do not exist. And then Allah saying, look at your natural world. Look how everything has come to being. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ اللَّيْلُ وَالنَّهَارُ وَالشَّمْسُ. Allah's talking about, look at the sun, look at the moon. Yeah, look at all of these things that are dependent, that are contingent on something else. So that's why I said, like, perhaps from your point of view, like, and to be honest, I can't understand it from your point of view. I can tell you from my experience, from my journey, it does not make sense to have these multiple gods. Yeah, and if and Allah obviously clearly refutes this in the Quran. If there was, we would have seen some skirmishes going on in the heavens, or something would be out of order. Like, for example, if we were in a ship, let's put it this way: if we were in a ship, say a helicopter or something, yeah, and like, for example, we're both pilots. Say me and you, Vincent, we're both pilots, yeah, and say, like, obviously we had a heated debate. And we start having fisticuffs. Yeah, what will happen to the helicopter?
Yeah, but two people can fly a helicopter without getting into a
And there's no
fight.
autopilot, by the way. There's no autopilot. There's no autopilot. So that's what I'm saying. We would have seen some kind of things going on in the skies. Now, let
Well,
me tell
but
you.
there could have been. I mean, there's two things. First of all, if many gods were created, there could have been a king god that was created that ruled over all the other gods.
No,
And the other
no,
thing,
yeah,
the
okay.
other
So
thing,
I can go with that. I can go with that from your point of view. And that king god is the supreme one. Yeah. So even this is what I'm trying to explain to you. Even the polytheists had to
but he
make
didn't
sense of
create
it.
the other gods. The other gods came with him. He didn't create them.
No, even the polytheists, ancient polytheists, do not believe in that. They don't believe in
Okay,
it.
but I'm saying I could believe in that, and that's
No
not
one believe it
illogical.
because even then, let me tell you, because they had to make, even according to their audience and their viewership, they had to make some logical sense out of it. Yeah, and to make logical sense out of it, they could not deny the creator. And this is what I'm saying. Even in the Quran, when you read those polytheists, pagan Arabs, they could not deny the supreme creator. So they say, yeah, he does exist. But you know what? He's kind of, he's too far up there. Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of
but
thing.
all I'm saying, it is possible that the whole pantheon existed since the beginning of time, and that there's a king god, and that king god did not necessarily need to make all the other gods. He's just the king. That's it.
No one believed this, even pagans. That's what I'm saying. Throughout the history of time,
Okay, but what's wrong with there's not okay, even if nobody believes it, it's not illogical.
no, it is logical when you put it,
No, it's
look
not
into our natural world.
illogical.
No,
It's not
okay,
illogical to.
you can have that assumption. I'm saying, but based on you can have that assumption. But again, when I look at the natural world, I can't come to that conclusion because even using contingency, I can't come out because there had to be one. The problem with me believing what you're believing in is, for me, there had to be one at that end of that chain which is independent, yeah, and which did not have a beginning, and he is the one, like Neo.
They
He
all
is the
didn't
one.
have a beginning. And
No,
then the other
that's not
thing you
possible.
say, okay, the
Yeah.
other thing your argument is there's no way that this happened because they would all be fighting. But the way that it works is that depending on the situation, let's say that there's a butcher god, a baker god, and a candlestick maker god. When you're in the butchery, the butcher god is in charge. When you're in the bakery, the baker god is in charge. When you're in
That's what the polytheists believed. That's what exactly what you're saying. That's what Allah said. That's what they believe. So they believe, like I said, when they're looking up to the skies, this constellation is this god. So they anthropomorphize that constellation into a god, and they'll say, in this harvest or this month of the year, it's going to bring us this. So they used to invoke, like for example, the ancient Egyptian, they have the Orion Nebula belt. Do you know about that? So the ancient Egyptians. So I must say, see, I'm intrigued and fascinated in them as well. See, even being a monotheist, I'm intrigued in the ancient world and what they believed in. And like, if you look at the ancient Egyptians as well, they believed that the pharaohs actually came from the Orion Nebula. So you got those 3 stars. In fact, it's in the Bible as well. They're called the 3 kings. Yeah. And if you look at the Giza plateau, you got the 3 pyramids, and they're actually in line with those 3 stars. Yeah, and they believe that those ancient pharaohs were basically from that Orion Nebula. That they obviously the same thing, incarnated into God. Like you would have Lord Rama and Vishnu and all of these people. Same thing. They believe that their pharaohs were God on earth. Basically, yeah. So this and they had a multiple of gods. Yeah? Even then, they believed in the ultimate God. Yeah, because they had to somehow rationalize, that how did all of this come to be? Yeah, so we have all of these gods. So they never made the claim that all of these gods they never had a beginning. They said that basically there was one supreme being, atom or whatever his name is, and then all of those gods came from them. Yeah, but what they say is that that god's too old. You see, it's too far and too high up, and he does not communicate with us anymore. Yeah, so we have to worship those other gods who are more closer to our realms and closer to our, let's put it, space or constellation, and therefore they will bring us, prosperity. They will bring us victory, and they will also, be our arbitrators as well. So even in the Quran, so basically Allah says in the Quran, if you ask them about Allah, they believe in Allah, and then you ask them, why do you worship beside Allah? They go, we're not kind of worshiping them, but they are a means of a intercession between them and God. So they also believe that these trimurtis or these murtis or these deities, they could actually intercede with Allah. Do you see? Yeah, and that's what they used to believe, and that's why they used to worship them. And Allah was telling them, look, don't worship them. There's no need to worship them. Worship me directly. Do you see? And so even in Hinduism, you should know as well that a lot of these people, when they worship these, we'll call them idolaters because they're worshiping statues, but they will say they're not actually worship them. I'm sure you must know this. They will say that this is Vishnu, this is a representation of Vishnu. Yeah, and I'm actually worshiping Vishnu, or I'm actually worshiping Brahman. Yeah, do you see? So that's why there was, I admit, when Islam went there was some ambiguity of if there were clear-cut polytheists, because we, in terms of how we define who is a clear-cut polytheist, is based on their beliefs, not necessarily their actions, if that makes sense. Yeah, so they were still polytheists because obviously they were worshipping gods besides Allah, but like even Allah says in the Quran, most people believe in Allah at the same time they commit polytheism. Yeah.
Okay.
And go on. Sorry, my friend.
Does Islam believe that other gods exist and they're just Allah doesn't want you worshiping, or does it believe that they don't even exist?
Okay, see, brilliant question. Yeah, so if you read the Quran, it says that this is what the ancient people, they believe this. They, without any doubt, they believe there were more gods, but they never ever denied Allah. Yeah, and when I mean they never denied Allah, I mean the God, the one supreme God of Jacob, Abraham, and all those prophets. Yeah, because they had to, and I tell you why they could not do this. Because if they said that all of these gods exist, technically, if all of these gods exist, so how did they come about? Yeah, and if we say no, all of these 10 gods or 100 gods or 1,000 gods or 1,000,000 gods that you have in Hinduism, yeah, none of them had beginnings. No one would ever buy that. Yeah, because even the people, they may have been primitive. In fact, they weren't primitive. Looking back, how the hell did they build those pyramids? It's unbelievable. I've been to the pyramids. I've seen it firsthand. Magnificent, mega structures. Yeah, I don't even know even to this day how they did that. But anyway, so I can't say they were dumb. They were really up there in terms of technology and what kind of sophistication that they had at that time. But nevertheless, they were still polytheists. Yeah. So, but they did not deny the supreme creator. This is the point. And they did not deny it because of the fact that they can't make rational, logical sense about it to their people. Do you see? So they had to accept that there is one God, or like one supreme. But you know what? He's too old, and he's kind of obsolete. But now we got fresher blood. Like for example, like you got the old king. He has a son. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the first old king come back. He's lost all of his youth, and he's getting all grey. Now his sons come up. Two of his sons come up. They're like all blonks. You got Hercules, rippling, pectorials. No, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
I know you're a finger man, so you know what I'm talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
so we've got new blood, new gods. Yeah, they're fresh. They're more closer to us. The old kings, he's old. But, even though he's eternal, ever living, he's kind of retired. He's not doing much up there. Do you see? So that was the kind of gist of things, if you say. But Allah saying in the Quran, yes, you believe in all of these. These are fables. These are fairy tales. None of these things exist. Yeah. In fact, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulk wa lahul hamdu wa huwa kulli shay'in qadir. Allah says that He is the master of all the dominions. So because the pagan Arabs, they used to believe that this God, like for example, Hubal, Uzair, Allot, they had different dominions in the heavens that they controlled, which Allah had no authority over them because He was too high up. Do you see? And Allah rejects this. Allah says none of them have authority over any dominion. In fact, all of the dominion belongs to Him. He is the master and king of all the dominions. And He rejects this. So that's why I'm saying, if you read the Quran, you would have come to know this, that, in fact, the polytheists do believe in Allah, but they worshipped besides Allah. And this is what we call in Islam shirk. Shirk is and that's the worstest crime, worse than murder and all sins. Yeah. And that's the ultimate idolatry, is when you make partners with God. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me ask this. So in Christianity, they
Yeah.
do not deny that other gods exist, but they say what happened when God created all the angels, some of the angels rebelled and they got cast down into the earth and they became demons, and
Mm.
these demons demand worship, and so these demons are what other people perceive as other gods. So in Islam, you don't believe in any demons or anything like that. You just believe all other gods are fictitious fairy tales.
Okay, that's a good question. So first of all, I think we've been through some of this, Vincent. So we said that the angels are basically, they are um, angelic beings made out of light. Yeah. And they basically are created only to serve God, so they cannot disobey God. So we do not agree with the premise of Christianity, the theology of Christianity, that you got this kind of fallen angels that they turn bad or they become ugly or whatever it is, or they start rebelling against God. We don't believe in that. We believe that angels are made out of light. They do not have a free will. They're basically only created to serve God. They worship God, and they do not commit sin. It's impossible for them, in other words, to disobey God. Yeah. So we do believe in angels. However, and we also mentioned yesterday, I believe, that Allah created man and jinn kind. So the jinn kind are demons. So from the jinn kind is, like I said, they're made out of smokeless fire. Yeah, they're made out of smokeless fire. They live amongst us in a different realm. We can't see them. However, like I said, in the jinn kind, there are believers, there are Muslims, there are Christians, there are Jews, there are also Satans as well. Yeah. So Allah said you have Satan amongst the jinn and as well as the mankind. So even amongst the mankind, you have people who are literally Satans, let's put it that way, evil people. And then you have amongst the jinn as well, you have Satans as well. And that would be Iblis's henchmen or workers. Iblis is basically Satan himself. Because I don't know if you know who Iblis is. Iblis in Islam is the arch Satan. and basically he's got children and he's got minions as well that work for him. Yeah. And basically, obviously, the Satan's job in Islam and the satanic jinns as well is to go and misguide people, take them away
So
from
wait, the largest Satan is a fallen jinn.
No, no, we don't believe in fallen jinn. Remember, jinns are just like humans. They got free will, as we said. Yeah, and some jinns are Muslims. They will go paradise. Some jinns are Christians, as we said, and they're Jews as well as some jinns are Satanists, meaning they work for Satan, the arch
Where
Satan.
did Satan come from? Where did Satan come from?
Okay, so that's a good question as well. So prior to from Muslims, what we believe, prior to Adam being created, there were jinn on this earth. So we believe that there were jinn kind on this earth, and basically, we believe as well that Iblis, who's the basic the leader of the satanic jinns, yeah, at the head, he became a rebellious jinn against the Most High, which is Allah, yeah, and basically because he disobeyed Allah, yeah. He was apparently a very noble jinn. Initially, he used to believe in Allah, he used to worship Allah. He was so ranked high amongst the jinns in terms of he was with the angels, yeah, in terms of obeying God. He was a righteous individual, but he became fallen, not the angels. He became fallen because he had a free will. Because what happened is when Allah created Adam, he became jealous, literally, of that Allah created Adam, and Allah told him to prostrate to Adam because out of respect, yeah. And this is mentioned in the Quran. He said, why should I prostrate to him when he's made out of clay and I'm made out of fire and I'm more superior than him? So there was an element of racism there, arrogance there, and not disobeying God and telling God that his judgment is not good. Yeah, like he done. So that's why what happened was Iblis, that jinn, was banished. Yeah. And obviously in the Quran it says that he actually made dua to Allah. He never committed polytheism, by the way. He even knew who his God was. He said, "Oh my Lord, grant me respect that I may live until the last day, and you will see me. I will attack your people," meaning the son of Adam, from their front, from their backs, meaning, and that's his mission now. His mission, sole mission with his minion, is to take people and human from the path of God to polytheism and to criminal activity, sinful activities, etc.
Okay, so now isn't it possible that when someone prays to a polytheistic god that they're actually praying to a demonic jinn?
Yes, yeah, and I believe they are. That's the difference. So basically what happened is, I believe, like, for example, we all believe that the first, now you may disagree with that, we believe that the first religion or the belief was to believe in that one supreme God. Yeah. And over time what happened, yeah. How's your cough? Is it getting better or
A
still
little
the
bit.
same?
I'm feeling a little bit better.
Just keep on having hot drinks, my friend. We'll have lots
Yeah.
of honey, lemon, and hopefully you get better, maybe a few more days. So yeah, so what was we talking about? We're talking about, so yeah, demonic jinns. So these jinns, definitely, they have gone even to the early people that inhabited the earth, who actually believed in one God. They slowly, inspired them, whispered to them in their hearts, in their minds, to start doing acts of polytheism. Or because even like we have narration how even certain polytheism started. So for example, what the way that Satan works is, for example, like we have a narration where you have these righteous people and they go into the temple and they're worshiping God only. Yeah. Then what will happen is they got pictures of their loved ones who are very righteous people who worship God alone, and they will look at their pictures and say, you know what, this was one of my ancestors. He was such a godly person, such a good person. So then what will happen is they will, like, the Satan would actually inspire them, saying, look, these pictures are in your home, take them to your masjid, your places of worship, because obviously when you're worshiping God, they were really godly people. You want to remember them while you are in prayer as well. So it will be best if you take them to your place of worship. So what they would do is then take those pictures to their places of worship. And then after, what will happen is, after when that generation dies, the other generation will come and see pictures in their place of worship. Oh, these were like really our ancestors who are really righteous people, you know. And yes, we're still worshiping that one supreme creator. But then the Satan would inspire them and say, look, you're not doing enough. You know, that's not good enough. You know, having pictures. You need to like build some kind of statue or memorial for them, you know. So like that will be doing justice by them, by, you know, doing this. So what will happen, they'll say, yeah, that's actually a good idea. We're not actually worshiping them, are we? Yeah. So we have to respect them and honor them, and having a lousy picture is not enough. So what they would do, what they used to do is build a statue. They'll build a statue and they probably leave it outside the mosque or outside the temple. Yeah. And then what will happen is the Satan will inspire them, say, no, take it inside your thingy. You know, you want to be close to your loved ones while you're worshiping Allah. And then they eventually would do that. And then what happened is they will die off and the next generation will come. And rather than worshiping Allah, they'll start worshiping the statue. And that's how it happened.
Okay, so I have another question. So then I think that you would answer this. So, okay, so since evil entities do exist that pose as gods, then they must be. So then in Islam, sorcery is real. Sorcery can be real in Islam. It's not necessarily just some fake display of power, but it can actually be a real thing that's real. Sorcery is real.
Very good question. So, for example, you know, I've kind of grappled with this myself as well, you know, because I try my best to come from a logical, rational point of view, you know, and to understand text. But I accept in Islam, for example, like even jinn. Like, come on, we don't see jinn, but I believe in jinn. Yeah, like and obviously, like around the world, there's many, you know, you know, videos and people's experiencing the supernatural, the paranormal. All of this, it has to come from somewhere. So jinn is a very good explanation for all of this from a rational, logical point of view, because all of these thousands of people all across the world, different cultures, different places, they can't all be making all of this stuff up, that they have experienced supernatural things, or things that go bump in the night, or, you know, whatever, or they saw something. So jinn is a very good way of explaining these things. Yeah. However, I also believe, like, for example, Allah talks about sihr. Yeah, sihr is magic. Magic does exist. Yeah. And magic does exist, and I do believe that magic does exist. However, I also believe that there are jinns that can harm people, demons. But you know what? See, this is quite controversial. You know, like I don't see. Again, most Muslims believe that jinns can actually possess people and take control of their minds. Yeah. And to be honest, like I had I had to grapple with this quite a bit, like looking into this, because I find that quite difficult to accept, to be honest. Because the thing is, like, when I look personally in the Quran and Sunnah, I could not find anything authentic to say that jinns have this ability, that they can do this, meaning literally take over your mind. I know they can harm you, no doubt about that. They can actually harm you. They can actually physically make you ill as well. They can actually physically make you ill. They can make you see things which are not there. Yeah. Or they can create illusions. All of that I accept, because even loads of people. But to say they can actually, possess you and take control of you, yeah, this is what I find hard to accept. And obviously, if there was
Mujahid,
yeah, go on.
I just wanted to ask you about.
And I had a thought you might jump in there, because I know the mainstream belief in Islam is that they can possess you and take control of your mind.
But it doesn't require. I mean, does the Quran actually talk about them?
No. The Quran does talk about jinns. However, I have not come across any verse. There is one verse we can mention, but again, there's clear ambiguity in that verse. It doesn't say what they're claiming it says, and we can examine that as well. But you won't find anything clear cut in the Quran that actually says that a jinn can possess you and take control of your mind. Because the reason I find it hard to believe, it's like anyone can then do anything. Like they can go and rape a child. Yeah, they can go and murder someone and say what.
And say, I wasn't in my right mind. I was possessed. I mean, it's a figure of speech now.
Yeah, that's just preposterous. Allah would not allow anything to happen like that. And let me tell you, like, don't get me wrong. I do accept there are people out there which are mentally ill, meaning they are ill. They should be sectioned. There are danger to our society. but I accept those people do exist, yeah. But I don't, and obviously, if a person does exist like that, which they do, meaning clinically, mentally, they are ill, they are, erratic, they're suffering from psychosis. There are people, but they've got medical conditions. Clear. I don't believe that they're actually that the jin's taking control of them. Yeah, I don't believe in this because the thing is,
But very often exorcism. Well, I mean, priests are actually empowered to conduct exorcisms, right?
that's correct, and we have exorcism in Islam as well. But I'll come to
Mm.
that in a second. So
Mm.
exorcism, like we call it ruqya in Islam. Yeah. Now the thing is, ruqya can be done for anything. Like you can you can have like medical ailments. You might not be feeling well. You might thingy, and you can just ruqya is very simple. All you do, a person can do it to themselves as well. All you do, you recite Quran over yourself and you blow on yourself, or you can go to a so-called ruqya practitioner, which I know they have become really prevalent in our times, and they become kind of like a celebrity status as well, to be honest, in some people. But the thing is, in the early time, these people didn't exist in large numbers, to be honest, at all. Now the Prophet ﷺ, he did say, when you're feeling ill, when you're this, you can basically recite Quran, even Surah Fatiha, blow over yourself. Even that we have narrations that the Prophet ﷺ, when he was feeling ill, that Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to recite Quran, and she would blow on him. Yeah, that's perfectly normal. That's from the Sunnah, but that's not to do with jinn possession or anything else. It's to do with when you're not feeling, when you're generally feeling ill, or down, or you're suffering with an ailment that this was used to be a practice. Now, I must say, like for example, if you look at the Quran, I'm sure you studied it. Have you ever come across a verse where basically it says a jinn can actually, possess you and take control of your mind? Like fully, because if that was the case, then that person would not be liable for anything. The pen, in other words, the pen would be lifted from that person, because obviously that person does not have his faculties. Now, I did say to you just now that I do accept there are people out there like that, but I don't think it's to do with jinn possession. I think that they're obviously clinically mentally ill and they need help. They've got some medical condition, not jinn possession. Now, there is a verse in the Quran, yeah, and I'm sure you probably come across this verse, yeah. It actually says that they can't do this, and it actually contradicts this belief, because in the Quran it says that, on that day, Iblis would say, basically, Iblis would, like, we would blame Iblis and Satan, would blame Iblis and Satan, saying that, oh, Iblis made me do this, yeah. And the verse basically goes like that. The son of Adam would basically said, oh, Iblis, the Satan made me do this. I didn't want to really do this. And then then the Satan, Iblis would say, oh my Lord, I did not have no authority or control over him, but the only thing that I had over him was wiswasa, is whispers. I whispered into his heart and his mind, yeah, and I promised him something which I did not fulfill, and you promised him something which you will fulfill. I'm paraphrasing the verse. So this is actually a clear indication that they can't possess you, yeah, because in that verse Satan is actually saying, look, he's blaming me that I made him do all of this stuff and everything. I didn't have no control of him. Nor did I have any authority over him. All I did, I whispered. Allazi waswisu fi sudurin nas. Whispers of shayateen. That's the only thing I had over him. Yeah. And I promised him something, like which I didn't keep my promise. Yeah. And you promised him something, and you will keep your promise. Your promise is true. Yeah. So he cannot blame me, kind of thing. So this verse actually directly proves that they cannot do this, to be honest. I don't know if have you ever come across that verse?
Claire?
Oh no, probably it's finger. So yeah. So anyway,
Sorry, I did answer, but I forgot I was muted. So I don't know the verse. Do you know the verse offhand?
Oh yeah, I can. Well, I don't know the reference, but again, I can paraphrase it because I remember reading it, and this is how it goes. But I can provide the reference for you another time. But definitely, there is a verse like that. So that would actually prove that they can't actually possess you. Now, however, I do believe they can harm you. That, like I said, they can actually harm you. They can actually make you see things which are not there, and they can make you scared. They can again, to make you scared, you have to be irrational as well. That's another thing as well, because when you're like that in that state and go somewhere else, and they love doing that as well. So they can definitely do that, but I don't believe they can actually, physically take control of your mind and take control of you. But that's what jinns are. I mean, like, well, not every jinn, but I'm talking about the Sayyatine jinn. Their sole purpose is, Vincent, is that to take believers from the path of Allah, yeah, or non-believers, if they were going to the path of Allah, their job is to take them away from the path of Allah, and that's their prerogative, basically.
Okay, so then in a way, so it is similar to Christian polytheism, where instead of being, yeah, they are demons. That the other gods are demons.
Yes, they are demons because they demon inspired. That's right. Any other god other than the God of Israel, Abraham, is demon inspired. No doubt about it. Because when Hashem is saying that I am one, worship me alone. Yeah, whether it's in the Jewish tradition, the Islamic tradition, and obviously clearly there's been inspiration of the Satan to make them worship multiple gods, to make them worship a whole array of gods. Do you see? When they should be worshipping that one God. And the other thing I would say is to worship all of these multiple of gods. Yeah. How do we also get our objective morality from? Are we going to get it from this God? Yeah. Who's a, sorry to say, a sex diva? Yeah. Are we going to get it from another God who might be, sorry to say, a sodomite or something like that? I mean, who do we actually? There's an ikhtilaf. There's now you've got so many thousands of gods that they've got all different types of morality. They've got all different types of philosophies. Yeah. So who do we stick with? So even from that perspective, yeah, it doesn't make logical sense. So it's better to.
That's the reason I am polytheist, is because I don't believe one morality works in every single situation. I think that depending on the time and place, you need a different kind of morality in order to pull through. And I think when you have polytheism, you can call upon the morality which is most necessary in the period of time.
Okay, Vincent, I would say we're already here. So you, because you like to be a polytheist because you want to have these multiple understanding of what morality is. At the moment, we have it in the West here. I mean, you can pretty much do whatever you like. You have like degeneracy. The society is going down has gone down the rabbit hole so much. Yeah, basically, we can't define what a woman is anymore. We can't define what a man is. A girl can be a boy can be a girl. I mean, we've got teenagers sticking pills in their mouths, hormone blockers, all of this disgusting, despicable stuff. Like it's like soon we're going to be in pods, yeah, and we're going to be connected in pods, and basically we're going to be like, how China has all of these people in, like, I don't know, 1 meter square room. They're just sitting there plugged into the bloody matrix in their pods. That's what they want from us. See, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. And what happens is when you have this kind of so-called flexibility in morality, it doesn't mean anything anymore. You don't stand for anything. You don't have no concrete values anymore. Yeah, you don't even know what a man is anymore. This is the problem.
Okay, well, wait. You don't necessarily need to go. Okay, if you have multiple societies that are around the world, and they each can make. Okay, they each have the possibility to make a recipe for their own morality. Societies that choose bad moralities are going to fail, and then you'll be able to say, well, you know what? If you act.
But Vincent,
if you act, let me finish. There's if you act like these people, you're gonna fail. And then other societies that have different moralities will be successful. And then you say, well, if you keep these moralities, you'll be successful. And so that way you can find, the best morality for society.
Well, we're doing that experiment already. We're in that experiment, and we're failing because the more so-called liberal we become, yeah, and so more leaning left to the point we don't even know if we're here, if we even actually exist. yeah, and we've taken all, traditional conservative values and morals that actually made societies, that made families, that made nuclear family. We just chucked it all in the bin, yeah. So we can see this degeneracy happening, yeah, and yet we want more of this, yeah. That's why, like even Claire says, we need this Abrahamic God. We need to turn back to this supreme Elohim, this creator who has no partners, and then we can because that's our yardstick. Do you see? Because if you say, like, for example, we look at all of this, morality becomes subjective. So someone might think that it's actually good to sleep with animals. That's not, the animals consented, so why not? It seems that the animal enjoys it and I enjoy it. Why not? And that's why you have like people like having relationship with lampposts and getting married to their cars and swimming pools and all of this stuff. Why not? I'm not hurting anyone. It's the harm hurt principle, and I'm not. But again, these people are living in a delusion. Yeah, and what we're trying to do is wake them up from this delusion. Yeah, and turn them back to God. Yeah, and turn them back to God and explain to them why Allah has created them for. Yeah, and what are their purpose in life. See, when you live a nihilistic life, when you don't have no purpose in life, or you live a hedonistic life, and all you're waiting for is the next dopamine rush in your brain, this is how society is going to behave, my friend. Because they're just looking for that dopamine rush again in their brain. They can't get enough of it. Yeah, and they got nothing they can't look forward to anything in life. They don't even know why they're here for. So that's why they have to make up things. And unfortunately, our governments, our leaders, they're encouraging all of this stuff. And soon, like, as I keep on saying as well, if you look in Europe and if you look in America, there is a plummet in terms of population. And I don't think. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Claire.
It was just something about white people today. There was an article in the Daily Mail saying that instead of calling non-white people BAME, they're going to call them the global majority now. That is the new term for them. I mean, if I were white, I'd be fucking scared. It's like, suddenly we've just become a minority because our government, because if there's a global majority, then there's a global minority, isn't there?
Absolutely, Claire. And you ask yourself, why is it that why majority countries, are projected in the future to become minority? Why? It's because of lifestyle. It's because of
well, yes. I mean, you know what I think has happened. Okay, this is just my little theory, but it's like they haven't been protecting their own people. They don't care what kind of parents they are, what kind of education their children get, and they're becoming so useless now that they are literally, importing people from abroad to replace these white people who only know how to claim welfare and don't want to work and couldn't work even if they tried. That, I think, is the underlying reason. But nobody cares about them. They just...
Sorry, Claire. I'm going to have to pull you up on that. That's a bit generalizing of migrants. A lot of migrants, to be honest, they're very hardworking.
I'm not saying that.
No. She said white people. She said white people are on welfare.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, sorry, I misheard that.
And migrants are being imported to replace white people. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
because they can't be bothered to get off their backside and get a job. I mean, like,
and the government can't be bothered to instill in them the work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of the welfare state, which is sacred. It's their idol. They can't talk about pruning it and not making it available to, they're just making it bigger and bigger with universal basic income and giving it to everybody, and they're all accepting the bribe of UBI.
I mean, if you look, we've got over 100,000 vacancies in the NHS. We've got probably another 80,000 in the care sector. We've got vacancies and loads of people. I know, and I understand, like, even in our country, there's lots of people who cannot work, generally cannot work because of disabilities, or they might have issues, whatever. That's fair enough. But there are a good health, there is a good amount of people who can work, but they choose not to work. And that's why we're having all of these migrants coming over, And they're hungry, man. They want to work. To be honest, they want to work, and that's why the government is allowing a lot of them to come in, because they are hungry. They are going to work. They are going to, contribute to the society in terms of that. But the problem is, it's crashing the population, and it's not just that as well. It's because of values and culture. Our culture keeps on changing. Our morality keeps on changing. So obviously, like we've discussed this before, they're basically, encouraging single parents, single mothers, no problem, or they're encouraging women, not to have family lives anymore, not to be a wife, not to be a mother. Yeah. Why do you want to be a slave in the house? Yeah. Looking after your children, nurturing them, educating them. They don't want that. Yeah. And this is
compete with men in the workplace and make them hate you.
Absolutely. And this is what's happening, Claire. They don't understand. They're crashing their society, and there's not enough people to replace them because of the values and moralities, these new moralities that they installed in the people. So a woman, when she, like, for example, she may, and I'm not against women educating, it's very important for women to be educated, but they need to have a family life. They need to have children. They need to be a mother. They should be a mother. They should be a wife. This is natural laws. Do you see? But when you're, like you said, they install into them that you should be competing with men. Yeah. So, for example, they're always trying to compete with men in their jobs, in the work field, pursuing their career. So they come out of college, they do A-levels, university, and then they have a career, and obviously they're having a blast. Sexual liberalization as well. So women, do whatever you like, no problem. You got contraception, no problem. Have, as much enjoyment as you possible. So a woman does this up until maybe the age of 30, 35. Then she realizes, you know what, I need to get married, I need to get settled down. But then there's no one to marry her at that time, because she's past her prime. And then if she does find a bloke to settle down with, then she finds it hard to even conceive, because she's pumped so much drugs into her herself, and all of these inoculations that recently they're giving. I don't know also if you know about the excess death, what's happening, Claire, at the moment in our society. No one's talking about it.
What?
The excess death. Do you know about the excess death all around
excess
the world?
death of whom?
Of people. We don't have a pandemic, but there's excess death all around the world. Yeah.
Because of the injection, he's saying, Claire, because of the
okay, you're not allowed to say that, Vincent. You're not allowed to say that.
Oh, okay.
You're not allowed to say that.
Oh, well, let's just hope they don't. Okay.
Well, we don't. The rules keep changing. We didn't know we weren't supposed to mention it.
Yeah, but basically, this is news. I'm telling you, Claire, this is very, very serious. Leading academics, researchers, they're talking about all of this. They're saying that, look, what's happening with the excess death? We're not in a pandemic. Why are people dying? They're blaming it on everything other than, the inoculation. Yeah. Other than they're blaming it on obesity. They're blaming it on lack of apparently vitamin D. They're blaming it on, stress. All of these stuff. Like, I think even you can do your own research. I think even now, I think it's 14% or 20% excess death. And we're in obviously November at the moment, and this is unexplained. I mean, the government's not doing an independent inquiry regarding this. I know obviously we've been locked down, and as a result of being locked down, our NHS wasn't working, in terms of the
well, yes, they're saying, all these sort of, cancer patients, they didn't get treated, or, they got treated but not properly.
So I can understand a bit of excess death, because obviously in terms of their cancer screening, cancer treatment, so you're going to have some of that excess death, but not by this much. Now, and the other thing as well, strangely, people are just dropping dead. They've never had heart conditions ever in their lives. Yeah, people are dying for pericarditis, myocarditis, sudden death syndrome. I mean, this is a new one. I never heard that.
Sudden adult death syndrome.
Yeah.
I see. Have you said? Were you vaccinated, Mujahid?
No, I wasn't vaccinated, but I had COVID twice. Yeah, see, the thing is, I don't trust them, Claire. Never would ever trust them. They've experimented on our people in Africa. They experiment people in in Pakistan. You know, Bill Gates, he made it clear we need a population. We need to reduce the population. He's on record saying it. You know, and you go and look at all of those. You know, Pfizer is one of the biggest criminals on the face of this earth as well. Now you can go and Google Pfizer, and you will see that they paid one of the biggest payout in the pharmaceutical company for hiding data. Yeah, so they're actually criminals. Yeah, you can actually Google Pfizer, and they paid the biggest legal payout because of the fact that they hid data and, you know, they hid evidence, in other words. Yeah.
Mhm.
So they were fined. Yeah. They were fined one of the biggest thingy. So they actually are criminals. At the same time, Pfizer, basically, they are big sponsors as well of the Republican and the Democratic Party. So basically,
They should just abolish democracy. You know, that's a problem, I think, because it just makes all the politicians
democracy
so
claim
much
is an
easier
illusion.
to
That's what it
run.
is. Yeah, democracy is an illusion. That's what it is. You know,
Yeah, it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, we haven't got the time and the energy to go through everything that they do with a fine-tooth comb and, you know, really go through the statistics and work out what they've done.
And what they've done was totally criminal, Claire. It's like, for example, I remember here, you know, when they first advertised the vaccines, they were saying, no, you know, and I even felt bad as well. Like, I didn't want to take it, but I was thinking of taking it because they go that it's going to stop transmission. Like, to be honest, I didn't even care what happened to me. In that, obviously everyone does, but what I didn't want to do, which I would find it very hard to live with, and which was their general propaganda, is obviously I do not want, if I'm carrying something, I don't want to give it to an elderly person, and, you know, that person dies. Yeah, it would be very hard for me to live with that kind of guilt. Yeah, so I was thinking, based on that premise, not that I'm going to get it and something's going to happen to. Obviously, I was a bit worried about that, but more what made me want to get it initially was because of that. Because they were saying, if you have the vaccine, don't worry, you're not going to transmit it. You know, nothing's going to happen. You're going to stop, and you're going to basically protect your granny, protect your grandma, and that's how they were advertising it initially. But we know having the vaccine does not stop transmission. Now, and then they repackaged it saying that, oh, we didn't really mean that after everyone having the vaccine. We mean that it's going to, you know, you're going to have slight COVID. So it's going to prevent hospitalization.
It prevents long COVID or whatever.
Yeah, all of this nonsense stuff. It's all nonsense, to be honest. You know, and now people like, you know, serious stuff is happening. There's actually a documentary. I can forward it to you. And basically, it's called, I think, Died Suddenly. And again, they've been looking into the victims or people who have been dying of all of these heart-related conditions. And what they've been seeing, their blood is something different as well. Their blood is clotting. It looks like they've got kind of like long worms in their veins, believe it or not. So it's apparently doing something to the blood where it's clotting, and it looks like literally worms, like, you know, like earthworms, something like, it looks like that. It's horrific, to be honest. And again, all of this is happening. They're not mainstream news is not talking about it. There were some articles, but again, they're blaming it on everything other than the vaccines. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And I think, you know, the world should be, everyone in the world, they should be demanding their governments for a, you know, independent investigation into this, because obviously this excess death that's happening, no one's questioning it, and we should be questioning it. We demand answers. You know, we have a right to know about what's going on.
Yeah. Well, they still want to inject us.
Yeah, I know. You'll get your boosters, get your third boosters, fourth boosters. You know, it's terrible what's happening, and I think they've got agenda. They want to depopulate, and that's the way of depopulating. Again, there's a more sinister agenda.
Yeah,
sinister
I mean,
agenda
they want us to be gay, so we don't have children. And even if we don't want to be gay, they encourage our children to want to sterilize themselves so that they don't have children. You know, and they don't care. And they pass laws that stop parents from being able to reason with their children should they get such an idea into their heads. So I mean, that is the most obviously sinister thing. I mean, at least with the vax, it's like, oh well, we haven't noticed, and maybe we don't care. Up or down 20%, who cares? But this is a point of principle, really, that the government is actually it doesn't want to bother with governing us anymore. It actually can't be bothered with governing us, and it wants to just deal with AI, right? That's why they will have driverless trains, driverless cars,
So we
and
won't need people. We won't
yeah,
need
we
that
don't
labor
we
anymore.
won't need people. I mean, that
And
is
that's
their
why they're trying to
idea of their
depopulate us.
perfect world.
And see what's happening, Claire. It all nicely fits in with this grand agenda of 2030, and what the
The Georgia
economic,
Guidestones.
Soros and Economical World Forum, what they're all up to is basically it all in line with the agenda. So obviously this basically collapse of social conservatism. They're pushing that you shouldn't be married, you shouldn't really have children. If you have children,
We're going to make it hard for you to stay married with no
you're
divorce.
causing CO2, you're contributing to pollution, all of this. So in fact, if you love the world, if you love people,
you should kill yourself.
In fact, kill yourself. You should be gay. You shouldn't sleep with women. Women should go and pursue a career. All of this is their agenda, so we do not procreate anymore. We don't have, and now they're all obviously killing us with pharmaceuticals as well at the same time. And that's the agenda. That's what they've been doing. That's their game plan, is to reduce population. So. And obviously, if you don't have
and that is the whole evil of it. I mean, okay, this is kind of hard to prove, but I think a quick way of proving it is like, well, you believe in morality, don't you? And most people say, oh yes, I want to think of myself as a good moral person, and it's like, well, what is your group morality? And in the West, they won't be able to tell you, because they either say it's Christianity or liberalism. But most Westerners are neither Christian nor liberal. They rejected it a long time ago, and I think it's dangerous not to even have a moral system, because at least if you have a book of rules, when your politicians change it, you kind of notice, right? You think, well, you're not supposed to do that because our rules say this and that. And the thing is, we don't have any rules anymore because we don't have a religion, we don't have a secular political ideology, which means that our MPs can just keep changing the meaning of words and make marriage gay, and whatever else that they want to do to us. And make sure we don't complain about it, or if we complain, we can't make our voices heard. And we have nothing to fight back against them. We have nothing. I mean, we have to keep on voting. I mean, and we'll just get more of the same and worse if we keep on voting, because it means we believe in the system, which means we buy into it and we want to keep it going. And people can't get away from this idolatry of democracy. Even though they know it's not working, they still want to kind of double down, like, let's have more democracy. It's like the Aztecs. I bet when the Aztecs were sacrificing all these people, I bet a few priests said, well, is it quite necessary to tear the hearts out of people and throw them down the pyramid for the sun to rise again the next day? Perhaps we should try, not doing it for one day and see what happens. The priest got cancelled. Right,
he got cancelled. But it is very scary. I mean, the way things are going. I mean, and that's the issue. Like, for example, if we base our morality on just modern trends, and we just follow the trend. And let me tell you, it's not about all of these modern trends are not naturally happening. Yeah, and that's the other problem. It's not actually naturally happening that people are changing their perception regarding morality. It's actually they've been programmed to think this stuff. So everywhere we go,
not even programmed, because some people are just so suggestible anyway. You tell them something, and from the BBC, they'll believe it. And this reminds me of what the ancient Greeks said. And it was this: those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad. And I think, our ruling classes have been made mad, and there's no reasoning with them, is there?
Absolutely not, and it's all part of the agenda, because, like I said, when you don't have a sacred book, when you don't have a sacred book where you get your objective
You can say,
morality
stop the game. Let's have a look at the rules. What are the rules? You do that in a game of Monopoly or whatever, right? But we can't do that because there's no book of rules. and the British especially, we've been told to, revere our wonderful unwritten constitution. And you think, you utter fools. It means you haven't got a constitution.
Yeah, they're just
And
making them as
if you
they
go
go
and
along.
look for it, they'll change the rules before you find the rules.
That's right.
And I say this as a trained lawyer.
Mm.
I'll ask your son. You say your son is doing law. Well,
Yeah.
he'll be giving all this, all the rubbish about, the glorious unwritten
So,
constitution.
do you know much about legalese, that the language itself? Do you know anything about that, Claire?
Well, I know. Okay, it's quite. Okay, we operate under the doctrine of parliamentary supremacy. So we have no constitution. So it's all lies about us having an unwritten constitution. So it means that under the doctrine of parliamentary supremacy, the legislature, i.e. our MPs, can pass or repeal any law for any reason. That's wide open. Everybody knows it. You can, Google it and whatever. And actually, Israel is run under this principle too. At least the Americans, at least they have a constitution. At least, they can say, hey, that's a bit unconstitutional. We're going to, apply for judicial review at our Supreme Court. But this is not automatic thinking for us.
Yeah, because we don't have a written constitution. That's the problem. And like I said, as you're saying, that as they go along, they can just make it up, or they can change it, or they can put section B, blah blah blah, define something in a different way. and that's
like they did marriage, right? They had to redefine marriage, which previously was between a man and a woman. So they just took the words out.
Okay, do you know anything about maritime law? Are we still under maritime law? Are we all lost in sea? Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know, but some people think it's a way of fighting this, but I haven't understood the reasoning.
Yeah, because I think after the Great Fire of London or something like that, there was apparently some law that everyone is lost in sea. Yeah, and that's why apparently, again, I don't fully understand it as well. It's mind-boggling. But for example, infant that's why he's called a master. Yeah, and he's called a master up until the age of 7, and then he's Mr. and you got Mrs. and you got Miss. Yeah, and apparently every person who's literally born in this country, they have a stake to this country and its assets. And so when you're 7 years up until the age of 7 years old, when you're a master, you can reclaim that, because what's happened is apparently they passed a law after the Great Fire of London or something like that, that everyone's is lost in sea. Yeah. And so basically they took the wealth of the country for themselves, kind of thing. And you have a right to claim it up until the age of 7.
Well, I don't know anyone who's done it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So again, there's lots of
there are lots of sort of legal fictions.
Yeah,
and if nobody has done it successfully, you might as well assume the law is obsolete, or unenforceable if nobody does it. But the judge will say, "What are you talking about? Oh, I don't know any. I didn't learn it at law school." Blah blah.
Yeah, that's why I find some of this stuff interesting. Obviously, I've heard it from people online, and they talked about it as well. And obviously, we have in this country, statutes, and we have common law, and the common law apparently is supposed to be God's law. Is that correct?
No. What is God's law? If you're going to say, well, yes, it has to be in conformity with God's law. What is God's law? What is, which version will the British accept? I'm just saying, if you're talking about the Abrahamic God, there's only the Torah and there's only the Quran. The New Testament doesn't count because it was written by mortal men. So, but you can't even have this conversation with anybody. Can you?
But what they say about God's common law is that it's generational law that goes all the way back to supposedly back to religion and back to God. And with
No, they invest some kind of mystical thing about the common law being more moral, but basically common law is just law that has precedent, but precedents can be overturned, you know, and you know, common law can be overridden by statute law. So there's an act of parliament that just completely says, you know, all this
Yeah,
common
that's
law,
right.
and you learn it doesn't apply. It's all been cancelled because of this act of parliament.
And in terms of the Magna Carta, I mean, what does I've heard of the Magna Carta as well. I mean, what does it give us? I mean, like, is it?
Oh, I just think, okay, the Magna Carta was between King John and his barons. So basically, his barons are saying, you can't just come and take our stuff. We won't stand for it. And they rose up against him and made him sign the Magna Carta, promising he would never, you know, habeas corpus, I think, is one of the things.
Habeas corpus, okay.
Yeah, and then what happened later was that he repudiated it and said, you guys, you made me sign it under duress, and therefore it's not valid because you forced me to, and I was in fear of my life, and now that I'm free of the duress that you had put me under, I repudiate it. I do not agree. And then there was a lot of fighting, and then, you know, and okay, it's a bit vague, but the British kind of made it think like, oh, just because we got something down in writing means we can, you know, hold this person to this promise. But you know, King John had an argument saying, I was put under duress. If you think it's a contract, all contracts can be vitiated if there's evidence of duress.
But did
So
when he signed it,
really
when he signed it, did he write under duress on the top?
No. But he was saying I obviously was under duress because I was the only one. And I was surrounded by all these angry, you know, barons with their swords drawn or whatever. But the thing is, ultimately, it depends on what the judges decide. And justice delayed is justice denied. I mean, yes, in theory, you can get justice if you apply all the way to the Supreme Court, and it might take 10 years, and then it's 10 years of your life ruined, you know, getting angry, worrying about the whole thing. And they deliberately delay it, you know. They can find all kinds of reasons to delay the hearing, cancel the hearing, deny your appeal, and make you tear your hair out. And that's why, you know, in the olden days there was this idea of justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done.
That's right.
Yeah, then we trust our government, and then we won't question everything they do. And right now, we don't trust our government, and they don't even realize how important it is for us to trust them, and for there to be a national conversation of where the hell we think we're going and where the hell they think they are leading us. And the thing is, they don't know. They probably say, oh, well, we're just going round this revolving door for fun until we run out of steam, right? You know, okay. Another analogy is you're this female passenger, and you're with your boyfriend, your husband, and he's driving around, and he won't admit that he's lost, so he'll just, you know, drive around confident. And eventually, the worst that can happen is that he's going to run out of petrol, and yeah. So I think it's a matter of pride. You know, they won't admit that they're lost and need guidance.
Yeah, Claire, what's your position about abortion? What would you say about abortion?
I have to be neutral about it being a female. I'm sure if you were female, you would be thinking, well, you know, in certain circumstances, if I were knocked up, well, I would have it. And anyway, I mean, you can justify that by saying it's not mentioned in either the Quran or the, you know.
No, it's actually mentioned in the prophetic tradition. So, with abortion, for example, like generally they're impermissible. You're not allowed to have abortion. So, even for example, in Islam, like if a couple have a child in wedlock, and it goes beyond a certain time, yeah, and obviously you're not allowed to have an abortion, yeah. So even the Prophet, when a woman came up to him and she literally committed adultery and she had a child, He didn't say abort her, the baby, or anything. He said come back once you had the child. She came back after having the child. Then he said go back and wean him for 2 years. Yeah, because that's the right of the Quran. If we, you had a discussion about weaning the child as well. It's actually the Quran saying that weaning for 2 years, and it's harmony with the Hadith text. And then obviously she came back, and obviously because she committed adultery, she actually confessed, and obviously the punishment was carried out on her after that. But the thing is, in Islam we do have exceptions. For example, if a woman was raped, that she would be allowed to have an abortion. For example, if a woman, for example, had some medical conditions and the doctor said, you know what, having this child, even it could be with her husband, having this child, would be detrimental severely to your health. You might even like die. Then in those conditions, definitely there are exceptions. You can have abortions in Islam in that context. But however, in the context of like, I had a child with my boyfriend, that would be considered, not acceptable, like not permissible. It would be considered.
Okay, so maybe 100 lashes and then you get your abortion, or you have a baby and then you get 100 lashes. I mean, whatever.
They won't be allowed to have abortion. That's what I'm saying. Like if it was with the boyfriend, because it would be considered murder. Do you see? So in that context, even going back to the hadith, the Prophet, he could have said, look, just have an abortion or do something with a baby. He said he said to her, look, he could have even killed her. He could have passed the punishment on her then and then, but he didn't, because obviously the unborn child has rights. Yeah. So he said, no, come back to me once you had the child. She had the child. She came back again. That child now also has rights to be weaned for 2 years. So after she was weaned the child for 2 years, she came back, and then the punishment was applied to her. So that actually hadith goes to show even the unborn baby has rights, that because obviously executing her would mean you kill the baby. Yeah. So in that context, so we have hadith literature to actually prove, but there are exceptions. I know, like I don't know how it's in Judaism that if there's any exceptions, or basically full stop, they don't allow any kind of abortion. I'm not sure about that. But in Islam,
it's a bit vague, and I guess eventually, people will just want to decide, if the woman prefers to carry the baby to full term and then give it up for adoption, if she, if this sort of thing bothers her, or she might do that, or maybe her mother might pressure her to, who knows? People will just, even if they're religious, and
And what would you say about what would you say about, like, for example, like even married couples having children, say, which are disabled, or they're retarded, or there's something thingy. So, would you say like they should basically given the power, say, for example, that they can, say, kill the baby, or?
I would say so, because I think the Quran sort of says, do not kill your healthy children. So don't kill them if they're healthy, or the wrong sex, so you don't commit. But if they're not healthy, I mean, then there is this grey area, and I think
Okay, so you're saying that like parents should be given. I'm just trying to understand this. You're saying
the right of life and death over their children. I mean, certainly, up to I think abortion.
So you're saying basically, say for example, if a couple been married, they had a child, and the child, say, retarded or disabled, you're saying that they should have a right, legally, to kill their children.
Yes. If they don't want to bring it up, then they shouldn't be forced to.
Oh my God! And you're saying basically, and you won't consider that a murder, or you wouldn't consider that to?
I'm saying it's up to them.
And did you say that you got that somewhere from the Quran or something, or?
No. I'm okay. There is a verse that says, "Don't kill your healthy children, and don't kill your infant daughters just because."
Yeah, this was written again. I know that verse. That verse is talking about basically because the pagan Arabs, they used to bury their daughters alive. It was a shame. So whenever they would have a daughter, this was their custom. Yeah, this is what they used to do. And this was a general verse talking about that. It was saying that do not kill them. Do you know? And there's
Yeah, because I mean, look at what has happened to the Chinese. You know what they did with the one-child policy. So predictably, being the patriarchy that they were, they decided that if they were going to only have one child, they were going to have a son. So they aborted most, of their female babies, and then the next generation, it's like, oh my God, there are all these extra.
Claire, I'm gonna I need to like think you probably sorry to say on this issue a bit more. So don't you find that to be immoral, like to kill your disabled children? Because like Allah says that, for example, in the Quran, Allah says that, and we will test you with good health, poverty, life, death, even death of your children, to test you, to see which of you are the most grateful. Like Allah says in another verse of the Quran, just because you say La ilaha illallah, it does not mean that we will not test you. We will test you with disease, with famine, with all of this stuff. So in the Islamic way, we understand that when a person, I know it's very hard. I'm not saying it's not hard at all. When they have a child and the child is disabled or got impairments, then basically we believe this is a test from the Most High. That to see how basically patient you're going to be. Allah says in the Quran, Allah loves those who are sabirun, those who are the most patient. And in many hadith literature, Allah, the Prophet he said, Allah, tries those he loves the most. So like the biggest test or the biggest trials that were given were to the prophets. Like for example, Abraham was thrown into fire. If you see the Prophet his uncle was killed. Many prophets of the past, they were literally killed. Their loved ones were killed. So even from the Islamic discourse, we believe that just because you believe, Allah would test you, and Allah would test you with many things.
I think even without disabled children, you're tested enough. I mean, I think even with healthy children,
absolutely, my dear. Obviously, absolutely.
So, okay, I'm going to look the other way. I know people can be shocked and horrified. I'm saying
I don't understand. I'm trying to understand.
Parents to bring up their severely disabled children, and then going, oh, how could you do such a thing? When they're murderers. I'm not doing that. Okay, that's my position anyway. I'm not going to get on my high horse.
Okay, but it's just that I'm trying to like understand morally how can this be accepted. To be honest, I could understand.
It doesn't do anyone any harm. And what you're doing, when you force these unfortunate parents to bring up severely disabled children, is that you force them to pay the opportunity cost of and they could have other children who might be healthy. So I have a girlfriend.
Why do they need to kill them then?
I have a girlfriend. Okay, basically, I have a girl. Her first child was severely disabled, and she basically decided not to have any more, and her husband divorced her, and all she's left with now is institutionalized retard. I mean, I wouldn't advise any daughter of mine to do something like that. Would you?
No. If my daughter has for example, retarded child and she's bringing him to this world, then I would expect her to look after it, or I would look after it, because again, it's a trial for me. You don't see, this is what I'm saying. All of this whole simulation, if you want to call it, we talked about that pen. It's a test. My real world is in the hereafter. That's why they can never defeat us. That's what you need to understand, Claire. I'm talking about Islam as a whole. They can't defeat it because of the fact our paradise is not in this world. It's in the hereafter. Every single thing is a test, including death, including torture. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that there will be a time that will come. A man will be put on the floor and a metal comb would be taken through his, basically his whole body, and it would take the flesh off his skin, and he will still say La ilaha illallah. And there will be another man who will be put on the floor and a saw would be taken and he will be literally chopped into half. And he will still say La ilaha illallah. And he will
okay, I don't think there are many people like that.
And I hope and I pray that Allah makes us all like that. And that's why I say.
Well, I mean, it's just enough that we stick to
And you
the
know about
principles we
Bilal.
profess to
Yeah,
have, and
yeah.
I'm saying there is a get out clause in that, it does say do not kill your healthy children. So if they're not healthy, then they can go, and you shouldn't feel too bad about it.
It didn't say that they can go or that you can kill them.
Do
Because
not kill your unhealthy your healthy children. That means if they're unhealthy, you can. I mean, that's an interpretation.
there's no precedent for that. I can tell you.
It's an interpretation.
Okay, fair enough. If you like divorce all the hadith literature and the exegesis and all that, perhaps you can make that. But you can't absolutely make that decision. Therefore, you can kill your child. It doesn't say anything about that. That's quite a big jump, Clear.
Well, I mean, you don't necessarily have to, personally. I mean, there are lots of ways of doing it that don't
Now,
amount to.
I think, but what a better idea would be, you don't kill them and let someone else take care of them, and there will be
Well,
plenty of
okay,
people.
well, the what do you call the midwife? I mean, midwives were traditionally expected to, discreetly do what the mother really, really wants. So the midwife would have a chat about the feelings of the mother if the baby were disabled. And
But you know what? One other thing, one thing you can do. I mean, like for example, obviously now we've got advanced science and all of that. We've got obviously women are going in for echoes and they've got certain tests that they can thingy. So if it turns out that, for example, even from a Muslim woman, that there's something wrong with the baby or the baby can be, as long as I think it doesn't go over maybe 4 months. I think 3 months maybe. I need to double check according to the hadith literature. Then you can have an abortion in that case. You can have an abortion.
okay.
So as that develops, but to be honest, I don't know, Claire, that just sounds horrific. Do you see? I mean, like if the baby's not born, he hasn't come to this world, and obviously science is developing, and we've got means of knowing they can carry out tests, and I hope science evolves even more in relation to this, and we can determine using DNA, etc., going forward, that if there is an issue and we can 100% prove it, then obviously the woman can have an abortion, and that's not a problem, and Islam allows that.
Okay.
I know in certain Christian sects they don't allow abortions at all.
Even if it's rape or incest or whatever, I understand. I mean, I mean, we all have our different views of it. I mean, I'm just not going to pretend. I mean, I'm just not going to get on my high horse about it. And you might be aware that I've said a few things on the subject on the Victoria Derbyshire show.
It's funny you say that, because obviously I was quite horrified when I first saw it. I thought, you know what, I'm going to definitely ask Claire about this, discreetly. But obviously you just kind of read my mind anyway. So I thought I need to, because
and what I'm going to say is that there's already all these death pathways, the Liverpool death pathway that they put these children on, and you have to wonder whether it's kinder to smother it at birth or just sort of let it starve to death.
Would you suggest the same thing for elderly family members, like say if they were suffering with cancer or something like that?
Well, actually, I know somebody who said he just managed to rescue his father from being put on the death pathway. Yeah. So, it is horrific. I agree. I don't know if you saw a film called Soylent Green. I'm not sure really how to do. It's like if you have a population that doesn't look after its parents, and can't afford to buy all the services of these immigrant workers. Maybe soon they won't want to come because they won't be paid enough, and and they'll be, I don't know. I mean, it will be horrific indeed, and we should think about that. And maybe there are, discreet and humane ways of, I don't know, cutting off the medication of people who are past retirement age, don't want them hanging around too long if they, have lost their marbles. I don't know. I mean, dementia. I don't know. It's difficult. I'm going to leave it to other people to decide. But I will also be compassionate on those who don't know what the hell to do. Because a lot of women now sort of think, well, I have a job. I can't be expected to look after mum and dad or whatever. So and you know, I know a lot of migrant workers feel contempt for white people who don't look after their parents. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot
So
of elder
in the
abuse in
Islamic
care
culture,
homes.
yeah. So in the Islamic culture, we don't put our, parents into homes or anything. We look after them. From Islamic culture, and obviously from my heritage from the Asian subcontinent. So our parents live with us all the time. Our parents, grandmas, we always look after them up until the time that they pass away. And as you very very well know as well, Claire, in Islam, after worshipping God, yeah, alone, yeah, basically your parents is fundamental. Disobeying your parents even in Islam is a major sin. Do you see? Allah says, I'm commanded that you worship none but Allah and then be dutiful to your parents. Yeah. And Allah said, if they reach an old age, do not say a word of contentment to them. Yeah. No, don't say
Not
even
even oof.
oof, not even oof. That. Yeah. Don't even say oof to them. Yeah. But rather spread your wings of humility on them. Like,
Yes, and I know parents who are afraid of antagonizing their children by posting anything on Facebook that might offend the sensibilities of their children.
yeah.
I mean, I know a Frenchman who said his daughter hasn't spoken to him after a Facebook post that she disapproved of. I mean, this is what they have to deal with because
See, even in Islam, see again the basic stuff. Again, Vincent, I don't know if you're paying attention, but even the
Mm-hmm.
basic stuff, my friend, even in Islam, you're not allowed to cut off kinship. You're not allowed. You have to obey your parents. You have to respect your dad. You like, for example, yes, obviously I'm classically been thinking like even Claire would say we kind of believe in a patriarchy, but when it comes to me as an individual, my mum's above me. It's a matriarchy. Yeah, I have to obey my mum. If she says go and sit there, I have to obey her. If she says go and do this for me, I have to obey her. I can't say no. Do you see? And I have to willfully do it with happiness, with contentment. And by doing this as well, again, spirituality, my friend, going back to spirituality. So when I do errands for my mum, whenever she phones me, I need to go doctors, or I need this, yeah, we happily do it. Do you know why? Because it's a worship to God Almighty. By doing this, I know that God Almighty would be happy with me. And by doing this, it's not just good for me spiritually that I'm going to get reward. It's also good for me in terms of keeping my kinship with my mum, keeping the
and,
family
and, and
tight.
showing a good example to your own children.
Absolutely clear.
No, it's sort of like, well, you respect your parents so that your children might think, well, I'll become a parent too and be respected. But if they say, if this is a terrible culture that we have here because it's a culture of youth and beauty, and the moment you're no longer young and sexy, you're treated like crap. And that's why a lot of people prefer to live in the Orient, because they would be treated with greater respect by their students.
See, I think Islam has the middle ground regarding this. It gives it
Mm.
family unit complete justice. But from what I understand in the Torah, if you are disrespect your parents, it's a capital punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, of
And
drunken
how
and
many
disobedient.
children
So
disrespect their parents in the Western world? Can you imagine that? Yeah, all of them would be put to death. That's crazy.
there would be a population reduction.
All the youth would be put to death. Like I'm sorry, I'm sure you've seen, like, for example, I try my best not to use abusive language or profanity, but I'm going to say, how many times Western kids, oh, fuck off to their mum or parents? That would be a capital punishment. Can you imagine that? Like just saying F off to your mum, which I never dream of doing, never done it ever in my life, but I hear it all the time. Yeah, when they become teenagers, they're obviously they're going out. They've got other lives, social lives. They probably have a sex life as well, whatever. And they're going out partying, doing this. They're coming back. Oh, mum might say, "Where have you been? It's been so long. Oh, don't wear that dress. Don't go out." They'll just tell them to F off. Like, I'm 18, I can do whatever I like. Yeah, that would be a major crime under the Torah laws. They would be literally executed, all of them. Yeah, and in Islam, it doesn't just give you diktats, it tells you why you should respect your parents, what's the reason behind it, how you would be rewarded for it. Yeah, how if you show patience with them, Allah would give you reward. Like, for example, the one who serves his parents, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the authentic hadith, there's in paradise, there's a bab. Bab basically means a door or a gate. Yeah. That whoever serves his parents and is righteous towards them, it will be said to them to enter paradise through that door. You know, one time there's another hadith where companions, like for example, as you probably know, I say again, I don't want to be referred as a jihadi or anything, but one of the ultimate, goals, not goals, but I would say, for a Muslim is that they want to die as shaheed. Shaheed basically means as a martyr, yeah. So a martyr has he has a separate rewards. Like for example, like if a martyr is, and after actually define what a martyr is in Islam, there's different types of shuhada in Islam, but one of them is basically fighting oppression and tyranny in the battlefield and fighting for your religion, to protect your religion, to protect your people in the battlefield. If that person basically is killed by the enemies, basically he goes straight to paradise without any kind of reckoning. Yeah, so that's what we have in Islam. Yeah, and so what happened was, again, I'm just giving this hadith so I can so you can understand the other hadith referring to the parents. But what happened was, like during the time of the Prophet, there's a narration that they were going for a military expedition for jihad, and basically one of the companions, he said, "Oh, Allah's messenger, let me come and join you in this expedition," because obviously the Prophet ﷺ, he was a statesman, he was a warrior, he was everything, as you know. So the Prophet said, "Do you have a mother?" He goes, "Yes, my mother's elderly." He goes, "Stay with your mother, yeah, and this is jihad for you." That's what he said. He goes, "Don't come with us to the expedition. You have a mother, you serve her. This is your jihad." And the word jihad means someone who strives and struggles. Yeah. So you know, like they say in the West, jihad means holy war. It's nonsense. Yeah. Jihad basically means to someone who strives and struggles. And there's another hadith or narration saying that, you know, jihadul nafs basically means to do strive and struggle against your own evil inclination. Yeah. So a Muslim goes through a jihad on a daily basis. A jihad means a struggle against his own evil inclination. He's trying his best to be good. And obviously, spoke about the whisper of shaitan. He's telling him, "Oh, do this, do bad things, whatever," and he has to suppress those feelings. He has to try his best to suppress those feelings, and if he does, and if he succeeds, then he will be rewarded for it. Yeah. So, but the point being here regarding this narration, even though that going jihad and fighting and, you know, protecting the frontier of Islam, yeah, and the Muslims is such a noble deed, and a person literally would go paradise if he dies. In this case, the Prophet told that man, "No, stay home and look after your mum, and this is your jihad." So the parents is paramount in Islam. It's something really, really important. None of us, it's unfortunate to say, I have seen some disrespect of Muslims against their you know, family members, and again, this is again of, you know, them going
culture.
Culture again, going through the culture of this country and this, that, and it's beggars belief some of them are behaving this way, you know. And the Prophet, he did prophesize this. He said that there will be a time that will come when you will swear at your own mothers, yeah. You will swear at your own mothers. And then the companions say, "Oh, Allah's messenger, how is it?" Because this was absurd. This was this was absurd to them, that how is it that, you know, you can swear at your to your parents, because they even at the Arabs, they used to really respect their parents. They found this absurd. How is it that we're going to swear at your parents? He goes, "No, basically what will happen, you will swear at others' parents, and they will swear back at your parents, and that's how you swear at your parents." But now it's the opposite. They directly swear at their parents. So we're in a bigger trouble than what the Prophet prophesies. So again, Islam deals with all those issues, social issues, and unfortunately, Vincent, Noahidism does not address any of these issues, or how to, deal with any of these issues, or how you make the world a better place, how you make the community a better place. You know, what are our ideals? What are the processes? What are the mechanisms?
Well, I suppose Vincent wouldn't be concerned about it because he's not going to have children, and that is another thing about the social and moral hierarchy, that married parents should be privileged over non-parents, over unmarried parents, so people know their place. Because it's like, if you talk to non-parents, they don't care about LGBT being taught in primary schools, because they just can't imagine themselves caring. It doesn't affect them, and unfortunately, most people are like
Yeah,
that.
but Claire, there's plenty of parents that do want their children to learn LGBTQ in school. There's plenty of parents who do.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah, that's
shocking.
why it's being taught, because so many people are voting this in. Why do you think 50% of America is Democrat? Because people want
Because they're
that.
women.
Okay, but still 50% of people want their children being taught LGBTQ in school.
Well, okay, that undermines the institution of marriage and the family, and if you want to continue doing that, you will just have more and more social problems and granny dumping and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, see, again, there has to be some realization to white Western people that what's happening to them. I understand that. For example, you can still be a homosexual man. That's not a problem for you, my friend. But you can still objectively analyze what's happening to the society as a whole. Because it's become decadent. It's going down the pits, my friend. And it's happening because of all of this liberalization and all of this stuff. Now, you mentioned LGBTQ. Me personally, I do see that there is a need to teach children this, but it has to be age appropriateness. Yeah, that when they reach, like, say, when they're teenagers or whatever, something like that, then there can be a discussion. But they shouldn't
No,
be
no, the discussion has to be when they're children for two reasons. Number one, I knew I was gay when I was 5 years old. Number two, so I needed to be affirmed. Okay. Yes, many gay people realize when they're very young that they're gay. And so that needs to be affirmed. But then also bullying against gay children starts very early. So children need to be like, it needs to be normalized so these children aren't bullied.
normalized.
Yeah.
But then you're going to get more gays, my friend.
You're not going to get more gays. You're just going to get gays. You're going to get more gays out of the closet, is what you're going to get.
No, but I'm saying, like, I believe it's social conditioning. I don't believe you're born with gay genes or anything like that. I believe you choose to be the way you are. Yes, perhaps you might sometimes not. You might not have impulses that you cannot control. Like
Vincent wants to be a father. So inside this very gay man, there is a heterosexual.
No, yeah, but I want to use surrogates.
Father.
No, I want to use surrogates. Doesn't mean I said I want to use surrogates. I don't want to. I'm not straight.
You still need women, though, my friend.
Yeah, but I'm not having sex with them.
Well, that's your natural disposition. Our body parts are made for.
Okay, but I could become a father without having sex with a woman.
But you wouldn't be a married father, and then you'd be treated as a sex offender, which is,
No, but okay, Claire, we're not talking about under secular Quranism. We're talking about whether a gay man can have a baby or not, and yes, he can.
Yeah, but that's a aberration, my friend. That's like God made, women and men for each other. Our body parts are complementary, you see. And even from a naturalistic point of view, if you see, like, even if we leave God out of the equation for now, you will see that men and women are complementary to each other in terms of even their sexual organs. But the other way around, it's like, I don't know how that works, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So I do understand you have impulses, and perhaps you can't control them. I agree. I'm a heterosexual man as well. I go on the street, and I like women as well. Yeah, but I have to restrain myself. And every time I restrain myself, yeah, and I don't say cheat on my wife, I get rewarded for it. Yeah, and this is how the world is. Like the Prophet said that the paradise is surrounded with hardship, pain, restriction, perseverance, patience, yeah. And the hellfire is surrounded with temptation, lust, desire. Do you see? So when you understand that, your point of view from the Matrix point of view, that you have to do, that you're gonna, it's easy to go to hellfire. All you need to do is follow your desires. That's all you need to do. So us heterosexual men, we also have desires as well. But obviously, a lot of my desires, I don't go out and fulfill them because I don't want it to be I don't want to worship my desires. And that's why Allah says in the Quran, have you seen those who take their vain desires as lords besides Allah? And Allah's put a covering over their eyes and concealed their heart, and they're basically made them deaf. Do you see? So that's why you may get all of these impulses, but you can objectively step out of that and think to yourself, you know what, this is going really pear-shaped. Now, I'm not homophobic. I do understand that people, if they choose to do that, that's their business. I don't support that kind of lifestyle. I made it very clear. But I do not believe that it should be promoted and widespread everywhere. And because if you do that, my friend, I'm sorry to say, even more people are going to become homosexual. Some, we've agreed as well, like even heterosexual men can get homosexual thoughts. Yeah, a lot, because we believe it's from Satan. Remember, yeah. So even heterosexual men can get homosexual thoughts, and you even agreed that even homosexual men can get heterosexual thoughts. Now, if, for example, homosexuality is everywhere where you go, you cross the bloody Pelican Crossing, and there's a rainbow there. You look at the the bus, there's a rainbow there. You see a Gap advert with two blokes hugging each other. Yeah, wherever you go, you see, the articles of Sodom. Yeah. Now, you might be a heterosexual man, but you might think, you know what, perhaps I am gay, man. I get this one time I got that homosexual thought. Perhaps I'm gay, and look, everywhere where I go is all gay, I can see all gay things. Then why not try it once? And this is what I'm trying to explain to you. Yeah, if you keep on advertising and promoting it in society, in public. See again, and that's why Islam has that solution. Islam says you can't do that in public. You can't advertise that in public, because what you do is your business in the bedroom. That's your thing. You get me, Wagwan? That's cool. But don't bring your nonsense on the streets. Yeah, and even me being a heterosexual man, I can't also bring my nonsense on the streets as well. And I can't go out there and do a campaign. You know what? I want to line up 50 women right here and there.
No, but you're allowed to make it clear out in public that you're a heterosexual with your wife and your children.
I'm
No,
not.
you are. I mean, look, if you're walking outside with your wife and your children, that means you are obviously making it clear you're a heterosexual.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can be with your partner and you can walk outside. And yesterday we talked about even certain cultures. You could, like, I don't know if they will totally allow this, but I know it happened in Saudi Arabia. Like, some guy was holding my hands. I find it really uncomfortable. Yeah. But he was just being nice. He was being pleasant, and like I said, when he left, he went for me as well and gave me a peck. I'm like, whoa, what is he doing? Yeah. But obviously, I find it cringe, and I find it really, really uncomfortable. I was blushing. I was going all red, like thinking, "What you doing, man?" Yeah. But for them, it's normal. So, for example, no one's going to say, even if you did that. Let's just say you just did that. You was with your partner, I don't know, holding hands, walking down the street. As long as you wasn't, doing French kissing or something like that, and like you were all over each other, then I don't think you would even have a problem, to be honest. And what you do at home is your business. But again, we won't allow all of these advertisements of billboards everywhere. So even if a heterosexual man had homosexual thoughts, if he was advertised and bombarded with homosexuality everywhere, perhaps he might think, you know what, let me try it one day. It's like this. And why do you think they banned, I don't know if this is in America, by the way, in the UK, we've banned all advertisement of smoking. Why is that? Because they know, because obviously there's studies that have gone into this, and we've come to the realization that obviously definitely with that, it's unequivocal that smoking is bad for you. Yeah. So prior to this, even me growing up in the early 90s and all of that, I used to see billboards of Marlboro, Benson and Hedges, and all of these cigarette companies that promote and thinking. But they stopped all of this, my friend. Why? Because they know by doing that, even if you're not a smoker, you're going to take up smoking. Yeah. And it's the same thing with homosexuality, I'm afraid. Yeah. And all of these other vices. Yeah. Same thing with drinking. I don't know. Claire, have they banned advertisement of drinking? I don't know if they've done that in the UK. But again, there's, I think, suggestions of doing that as well. Do in America, do you advertise smoking on
No.
Okay.
No.
But I'm sure going back 20 years ago, they allowed it. Yeah, but they saw that by doing this, people are taking up more of smoking. But now that advertisements no longer exist, less people are taking on smoking, and I think more people are vaping now anyway. But that's a clear point I'm making. Yeah, it's an observable point, and it's proven with empirical data. And likewise, if the norm, I'm saying if the norm is a heterosexual relationship, it would stay that way. But like I said, promoting homosexuality everywhere, and it's everywhere around you, surrounding wherever you go. You might be a heterosexual man, but you might have some homosexual thoughts, and by seeing all of this normalized everywhere, you might think, you know what, let me just go and try it once. You can't, think it when you haven't ever tried it. He might just out of curiosity, and he might be, so that would lead him to that. That's my point. But if you remove all of this from society and the public sphere, you won't have this problem. Yeah, and I think even now the UK is UK government is suggesting that they don't want to advertise junk food, because obviously we got a epidemic of obesity, type 2 diabetes. I'm sure you got that in America as well. Like you have like hero burgers and all of this other, like I think in America, like your portion sizes are massive, your burgers are massive as well. So you got this serious problem as well of obesity. People are dying young because of their overweight, and same thing here with type 2 diabetes. So even the government's talking about removing, junk food advertisement from public areas. Again, same thing. But can you imagine that Islam already had this narrative? This is what I'm trying to explain to you. Yeah. So I'm saying to you, Islam has answers for all of these stuff. If you remove, apparently in America as well, you're not allowed to drink in public. Is that correct?
If it's in a brown paper bag and people can't see what you're drinking, then you can drink.
Wow, that's Sharia laws, mate. That is Sharia laws. Seriously, I was shocked when I heard this from. Apparently, like in the UK, you can pretty much drink. You can drink in public. That's not a problem. You can drink in the park, as long as you're not drunkenly disorderly. Then there's no problem with it. But I was shocked to hear. And why is that, my friend? Why? How comes you're not allowed to, like, say, can of beer in the park on this nice summer's day? Why aren't you allowed to do that?
Because they don't want it. They don't want it advertised that you're drinking out in public. Because they don't want.
What's the rationale and the behind that then?
I guess they don't want to encourage that. They want less people to drink in public.
Why is that?
Because I guess if you're drunk, then you're more likely to do something stupid.
So, but can you drink in the club?
Yeah.
So what would be the difference between drinking in a club, getting legless, and like doing acts of violence or getting into violence, than going on the street and doing the same thing? What's the difference here?
I think that maybe a club is more.
I could explain it to you. I can understand the rationale behind that, because the people who go in the club, they choose to go in that club knowing that there's drinking going on and it's a controlled area. Yeah. In the public, that's for everyone. People don't like drunkards or people knocking around, becoming legless, walking into you, or becoming antisocial. They want peace when they go out. It's a public area. They want peace. It's not like you can have separate roads for separate people. So in that way, they enforce it in that sense because of that reason. And obviously, if you're going into a club, then this is a controlled area. So a person who's going in there, he already knows there's going to be people drinking. There's going to be people doing all sorts of stuff. And basically, it's a form of just knowing a social contract, knowing that that's what takes place there. And believe it or not, that's Sharia law. That is the Islamic position. The Islamic position is in your private home space, you can do whatever you like. In fact, like we're against alcohol as well. But if someone was drinking alcohol in his house, yeah, he's not really allowed to do that. Obviously, it'd be sinful from God. But the thing is, the government or the judiciary could not do anything to him because he's doing it in his private space. Do you see? So.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, in fact, Sharia laws active in finger, and I think they're good laws, to be honest. Like obviously, if you're out and about on the streets, then obviously, if they have this law also that obviously then you won't be drunk and you won't go behind the wheel, which people do. Unfortunately, they get drunk and they go behind the wheel, or like you won't act drunkenly disorderly. You might start on people, and obviously, as you know, when people drink too much, it does bring violence around, and it's terrible. Even in the UK, we have like severe problems in the UK. Every Friday, Saturday, our NHS, our National Health Service, is full of drunkards. Yeah, and basically, I know paramedics, I know like people who are nurses, and they get abused on literally on a daily basis when it comes to like the weekends. Yeah, so the very people are saving them, literally like saving them because they're drunk all over, they're vomiting, and or they come into the hospital swearing, shouting abuse at people, attacking them, all sorts. It's crazy, and we spend like probably millions every year because of this social that you can eliminate. You could just say, look, you want to drink, we're going to ban it every now. And if you want to do it in your home, but we're not going to. But unfortunately, even the UK, like it's legal on our streets, I'm afraid, and that's why we have this problem. Perhaps if we adopted what America has, it would reduce a lot of these problems.
Maybe.
So what about other forms of narcotics? Are you allowed to? I know like many states in America, they've accepted the recreational use of cannabis. So can you smoke cannabis in public?
I don't. I think it depends on the place that you're in. I think it depends on the state that you're in.
You're from New York, innit?
Well, I am, but I live in New Jersey now.
And does that state allow cannabis, recreational cannabis?
It does, but I don't think you can do it in public here.
Okay, so again, Islamic laws, that's Sharia laws, by the way. That's actually Sharia laws, yeah. And obviously, but obviously, I know you have a serious issue with gun. Do you have a lot of gun crime in New Jersey or something? Do you have a lot of problem there?
Well, say it one more time.
So where you live, the state that you live, do you have a lot of problem with gun crime?
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's not Baltimore, yeah?
No.
Baltimore's notorious, yeah.
But
Okay.
New Jersey is
Yeah.
where the Sopranos is set, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Italian mafia, yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch any of it?
No, I didn't watch any of it. So I don't know if you catch our conversation, Claire. We're talking about, obviously we're talking about homosexuality, and we're talking about the advertisement of homosexuality, and I believe that they shouldn't do that and then we talked about laws in America regarding about alcohol and how they cannot drink alcohol in public, and similar thing.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, a similar thing Islam would do. So I was saying that if they could have, and I was talking also about how the UK basically we banned the advertisement of cigarettes, yeah, and we don't do that anymore because we found out based on empirical evidence that the more we advertise these things in the public sphere, what happens is that people adopt smoking more. And now we can see even from data, because we don't advertise smoking, and that's why there's a deduction in smoking as well, and also because of the fact of there's education regarding about it as well. So, and I was telling them the government is thinking of doing the same thing for do we do it for alcohol here as well? Can we advertise alcohol in the billboards?
I think so. I remember going to the cinema and there were all these sort of really lush ads for gin and all kinds of things, and then it says drink responsibly.
But I think
and all these advertisements for gamble responsibly.
Gamble responsibly, there's no such thing. It's addiction. But yeah, I know we've done it for cigarettes. I'm not sure if we've done it in public for alcohol, but I think there is a suggestion to do that. And I know there's a suggestion also not to advertise junk food as well. I know they're debating regarding that. But the point is, this is what I was saying, like, if you're going to have all of these advertisements, wherever you go, you got rainbows, pelican crossing, zebra crossing, on buses, everywhere you look is gay. Yeah. And you're a heterosexual man, and basically sometimes you may get, I don't know, homosexual thoughts. You might just think, you know what, society is all happy with it. They are, basically celebrating it. I might just go and try it once. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. But if you remove it from the public arena, then there's no issue. You know, basically you go about your business. You won't be enticed, or you won't be in any way, you know, Shaitan won't get to you and say, look at this, look at that, do that. Yeah, you'll be all right. And what you do as if it's a gay couple behind closed door, that's their business.
It's about the price of sex, Mujahid. You know, we all know that married sex is the most expensive form of sex for men. And everything else is cheaper sex. And I don't know if you remembered Stephen Fry getting into trouble for saying, well, actually, women seem to want something in return for sex, but if you have sex with gay men, they do it happily and willingly because they want to do it anyway. So, but I think that is, I suppose what I'm trying to say is, you know, if you want a lot of sex, you want sex to be cheap, and you don't want to pay for, you know, the accommodation and living, the children, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, extramarital sex is always cheaper than marital sex.
Absolutely.
And if you don't, yeah.
And that's why people opt for fornication and that, because they don't want to get tied up into a relationship where you got commitment, where you got bills, where you're making a family, building a family, and basically you got responsibilities. But that's why there are people who want to have a high life. They go out and get as many body counts as possible, to go out clubbing. You know, I've been a youngster as well. Friday, and you can pick up anyone, pretty much pick up anyone, and they're happy as well. So that's the nature and the culture of the site, and that's a big problem, Claire.
And it makes people it spoils them for relationships because they think there's always a better one around the corner. It makes it harder for them to settle down with somebody, you know, permanently, because they think they're missing out on all this fun.
Yeah, absolutely, and not just that as well. Especially if women, again, I know, of course, I'm not a woman, but as women, which things show that you know, the more body counts they have, it becomes extremely hard for them to have peer bonding when they actually settle down and get married with their husband, because the woman, what she's doing is only comparing you with the next guy and the next guy and the other guy and the other guy, and that's why, you know, basically in Islam we look at women, if when they are chaste and they don't have an engaging fornication, we look at them as high value women. Same with men as well, high value men and high value women. Do you see? And that's why relationships actually work out better. See, when you have a very less body count, yeah, and when you get married, you just experience your wife experiences you, and you experience your wife, and that's how it's supposed to. Do you see? And there is peer bonding there. But if you had so many other men, again, it's problematic, and that's why unfortunately relationships don't work out.
So you know, I mentioned to you that this global majority minority thing, didn't I, earlier? Or I don't know if I did.
You did.
Okay.
Only to Vincent, but anyway, apparently Westminster City Council is saying we're not going to call non-white people, but black and minority ethnic. We're going to call them global majority now.
So I mean, the BMA, are they going to call global majority, or the what?
Yeah, they're going to call them global majority. It's an article in the Daily Mail. So I'm just saying, if I were white, I'd be, wow, that's really scary.
So this count is not demographics based on, say, the UK, but it's global.
Yes, I mean, which kind of, you know, implicitly acknowledges the global empire, right? They're actually acknowledging it now.
So they conceded that non-white people are the most majority in the world now.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, I thought it was
and the civic nationalists, I don't think they'll be happy with that at all.
Yeah, because it just means that you know, I mean, there's a kind of aggregate of you know, all the people in the world, and non-whites are the majority, and they're going to be using this against whites in their own country. I mean, this is what it's come to. And I'm saying, you know, yes, you've been saying all these things about Islam. I'm just saying, white people do not have a religion. That's why their ruling classes can do this to them, and they can't do anything back.
Yeah, this is a big problem.
I mean, you'd be concerned if you were white, wouldn't you? To be
Yeah,
called.
most definitely. I mean, like for example, I've told you in the past as well, innit? I checked out the civic nationalists, and they seem to be a bit more okay with immigration. Their main ethos is basically, as long as we have mutual values and mutual beliefs, it's okay. Doesn't matter. But obviously, they would like to keep it white best as possible. But the ethno nationalists, basically. To be honest, I do find some things I even agree with them. Like in some ways, I feel sorry for them in some ways, to be honest,
Mhm.
because they come from a place where basically they're saying, look, we've been conquered, our elites are bringing all of these people in. We don't agree with globalization. We don't agree with, occupation and invasion of other people's countries. I mean, they claim that people like Mark Kelly, I'm sure you know him. But he basically, he's on the ethos like, I'm not a racist. I don't believe I'm more superior than anyone else. I just want Bangladeshis for the Bangladeshis, Pakistanis for the Pakistanis, Iraqis for the Iraqis, Arabs for the Arabs, Africans for the Africans, and us English people, Anglo-Saxons for England. And that seemed very noble. I mean, like, but the thing is, my argument has always been to them is, like, if this was the case, if this is what you wanted, yeah, then I'm sorry, it wasn't like the migrants or the colored people who started globalization. I'm sorry to say it was your people,
It was
and
the British moving people around.
absolutely, it was your people who started this globalization. It was your people who were invading mass territories in America, in Canada, in South America, in basically Australia. There was mass genocide of the indigenous people there. You're the people who started this globalization by invading, occupying, and subjugating people and spreading your empire all over the world. Yeah. And now the very people who are being colonized, now they come into your country. You got the audacity to say, we can't accept you. You're the
Well, I
people.
mean, in theory, they could do something about it with their wonderful democracy, but actually, it's rigged against them because whatever the rights and wrongs of it, the fact is, it's not working for them. I mean, it's not working
It's
for the
not working for them now,
Americans.
Claire. See, the thing is, my argument against Mark Collette would be like, if this was the case and you was against it, how comes your ancestors at that time of the British Empire, why didn't they stop them? Why didn't they fight them? You have to prove that you resisted them. Yeah, if you believe that you're righteous and you have a righteous position, you have to prove that your ancestors or your direct ancestors, they did try to fight them, they did try to stop them. Then I would say you have some kind of legitimate argument. But if the case is that you've enriched this whole country based on the backs of other people, like for example, when they was in India for 150 years, they took out $45 trillion. 45 trillion. But prior to the British going into India, India was one of the most richest, affluent place in the world. Yeah. In fact, during the time of Aurangzeb, who was one of the leaders, he had more riches and wealth than all of the European
That's mine.
kings and queens put together.
Yeah,
But all of it
but I
was
mean, the
taken.
point is, it's happened. It happened to the Romans. Really, the empire was so big that eventually the Romans in Rome were actually a very small minority of the global at the time Roman Empire. And,
It's
and,
funny you
and
say
this is
this.
what happens when you are an empire. You become a minority in your own country. You become a victim of your own success.
Yes, I mean, like, just like for example, just I think a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to, again, he's probably a civic nationalist. He was on Facebook. I had quite a nice exchange with him, and basically he said he's going to vote reform, and basically he obviously I could tell like he's against migrants, he's against immigration and all of this stuff, yeah, and he was saying that like they should stay where they are, and I was making these arguments as well, and obviously he was basically in denial. He was basically there. So I had quite a nice chat with this guy. I remember.
Oh, it went quiet.
Yes. So yeah, I was talking about that guy. Yeah, I had a good chat with him, but again, it seems to me there's always gaps and holes in their arguments because, like, if globalization's already happened, then you can't stop it anymore. I'm sorry to say, you can't stop it.
Well, you
Everyone's-
can in that you assert that okay, you have to abolish representative democracy and say that there's only going to be one party and the party will have the principle of governing in the national interest and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You could do that, but they can't even bring themselves to say anything practical. They just go back to blaming the Jews and moaning about the Muslims. They literally have no idea. I found to my surprise that I'm the only one that offers a solution that kind of makes sense, even though they hate it. I know they hate it. Of course they hate it. But there's just nothing for them other than carry on voting or wait for law and order to collapse and then kick everyone out. Which is
But
kind of their thing.
Yeah. But to be honest, like, for example, with Mark Kelly, I saw that he's kind of sympathetic towards Islam. He's got no beef with Islam, but like people like Tommy Robinson, who's a civic nationalist, who's got Jewish handlers, no doubt, Zionist Jewish handlers, no doubt about that. Yeah, his primarily agenda is to basically spread anti-Muslim bigotry and Islamophobia, and he's basically his agenda is only against Islam. Yeah. But however, Mark Kelly, he's kind of sympathetic towards Islam. Yeah, he's got no beef with Islam. He just wants to work for his so-called indigenous people. But even like I said, the guy I was talking to, they claim to believe that the indigenous people of this island. When I explained to him as well that the Anglos and Saxons came from Scandinavia, North European Scandinavia. Yeah, because prior to that, obviously we had the Romans here, and the Romans were fighting the Celts and the others. And then what happened is they invited the Saxons and the Angles to literally come and support them in this fight. So I think they came in the 6th century, I think so as well. So they're not even indigenous as well. So this whole island, to be honest, it's been always an island of migration and immigration.
Yeah, and if they wanted to do something about it, they could, but they just can't even get it together to think of a solution. They're not talking about it, are they? They're just moaning about the Jews. What does Mark Collard even talk about? He goes on about the Jews.
Yeah.
Well, looking Jewish himself. He looks really Jewish in my view.
Yeah, you mentioned something quite interesting about the royal family being circumcised. Is that something that all of them have to do, or is there any? Because I know you kind of put it up article. I haven't actually read it. I haven't looked into it.
Well, I know that it's a upper class Englishmen sort of say that it's a sign of being highborn to get themselves circumcised. The sort of fashions and things. And I know Americans, it's like, a lot of them were kind of routinely circumcised and then, then they become anti-Semitic and then they moan about their foreskin.
No, it's not anti-Semitism. They just don't want their children's foreskin being cut off. That's so painful to take your baby on its first day of birth and to cut its foreskin off. That's disgusting.
Well, we don't do it in the Jewish way. Don't worry about that.
No, that's disgusting to remove an organ from a child unnecessarily.
They don't remove the.
Yeah, it is an organ. It is an organ. It's it's Chamo. It's supposed to produce schmegma, which is like a lubricant for sex.
What?
It's there for a purpose to protect the head of the penis.
The head of the penis, where accumulation of urine.
It's look, no, it's not that organ does not damage you. There's nothing wrong with that organ. There's nothing wrong with that organ.
They don't remove. Yes, there's people removing the organ. You're right, and that's horrific, my friend. Like people who actually are males and they're removing their organ. That's horrific.
No, I'm talking about someone who removes the tip of the penis. There's no reason to do that.
That's not organ. That's just a bit of skin. That's not the organ.
There's no There's no reason to do that.
There's no have you read the studies regarding about that and the medical benefits regarding about that?
They say there are no medical benefits. It's all been proven. There's no medical benefits. There's no detriment to having Europeans don't get any more problems than Americans. None of it is true.
There's studies regarding showing that how it prevents STDs, how it's basically actually cleanliness is, they done studies of circumcised men as well as uncircumcised men.
Okay, where are these? Because all the
Okay.
PubMed literature and everything says the opposite.
No, what I'll do, I'll send you, because I read them quite a long time ago. I know they're out there on the internet, and they are peer-reviewed as well. So there are studies that does prove this, that it's much cleaner, that it's much healthier, that it prevents STD, certain types of STD, not all of them. Yeah, and basically, it's good for you. Yeah, it's good for you because obviously, obviously, as you know, Muslim men are obviously circumcised as well, and the Jewish people do it. But obviously, we do not do it like how the Jewish people do it, because obviously they use their mouths and all of this stuff. We don't do none of that kind of stuff. Yeah, but again, loads of people are circumcised. But the main reason I asked about the the royal family is I'm thinking, is there any kind of Jewish ancestry with them? Did they come from the Khazars, or because there is a theory about that as well.
Wait, I'm sorry, I have to cut you guys off because I have to go and I have to end the stream.
Okay.
So I'll talk to you guys later.
No problem. I'm done as well here as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Vincent.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Take care of that cold, yeah? Make sure you
Yeah.
take care, my friend. Cheers.
Yes.
See you later, Claire. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.